What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Members Only Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel or watching after the fact because you're not a member, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and join in with these members only live streams. If you'd like to support the channel, then there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, or if you're watching after the fact and it's premiering. And there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Giuseppe Montesano, Twine to Twiangle, Mitch Kennedy, Original D-Rose, Rod, The Name's Burley, Twad Wazzle, Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, Flamboyant Telescope, JMails24, Unimento, M, Iron26, Endless, Flat Earth Sage, Golden McKiernan, Retro Bill, More Books, Can a Bear, Bogey, Michael Kahn, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Mel B. Styles, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Rob W, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now, we have both a G Plus panel and a Discord panel, so I'm going to hand over to them now, and hopefully you can enjoy their conversation.
Yeah, I'm just not going to talk. I'm in a bad area.
You all hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah, you good?
Okay. Happy days.
Yeah, clear and loud.
Loud and clear.
Well,
Oh,
where's
that-
Bob in Discord? Thought he wanted to talk.
Ooh.
No, we had 2 ballers. We had 50, which he just left. But we still have another one. It's R himself. But he hasn't
Oh,
opened his mic yet.
We found R finally.
Yeah, that's
That's a good one.
that's his name, R.
I love it. We finally found the R value. Can't wait.
Come on, R.
I thought even their own site said you could never see the R. How is he found if they can't see it?
You can't see it. Can't see it. They can't measure it. They can't prove it.
It don't
But it
exist
but
in
it
the
ex-
maths.
It's
But
a
it
belief
exists
system.
in the math one deck. It only exists in the math equation.
And on pirate ships.
And marked with an X.
Why did 50 run
And
away?
mark with an X.
Why did 50 run away?
Yeah, marked with an X.
Why did
Sorry.
50 run away?
We started talking about elevation angles.
Yeah, I asked him how many horizontal planes are there on the sphere.
Well, none.
Infinite. Did he not say?
Say again? One more time?
The guy who said infinite, please repeat your statement.
Yeah, there was a claim there was infinite horizontal planes on a sphere.
There's none.
Yeah, I started by
Zero.
explaining to him the Cartesian system, north, south, east, and west. Those are horizontal vectors. That's how a Cartesian system works, and which he understands. So I asked the following up question: how many horizontal planes are there on a sphere? But then you guys came in, and the conversation stopped, and he left.
Well, maybe you could say that a sphere contains a infinite amount of infinitely small flat planes.
No, it doesn't.
That's not a sphere. That's a disco ball.
Yeah, that's not a sphere.
No,
one of the-
infinitely small.
One of the defining characteristics of a sphere is that it doesn't have any flat surfaces.
Yes.
Yeah, but if you think of the flat surfaces as, well, differently, and you say, "Oh, it's infinitely small," right? So
You can't even do that, Arvin,
if you
because
look at a ball through a microscope, you might see some flatness to it on the molecular level.
no, you can't even do that because they never use any part of the sphere. They use the geocentric coordinate system, which is geocentric equator, the equatorial plane. They don't use any part of the sphere ever.
Because they can't. It's beautiful the way it's laid out.
Well,
No, they can't. It doesn't
an
exist
infinitely small
for it to be used.
going to be very useful, you know. So
No,
Wait,
Arvin,
say it again, Ken.
Arvin, get off this Baldwin thing. They can't use it ever because it's never used. In the books, it's always from the equatorial plane, the geocentric equator, and that's where the vertex is originating. They don't ever originate a vertex for an angle from any part, small, medium, or large, from a sphere that only exists in math.
I didn't suggest that a infinite small plane being part of a sphere would have any relevance to anything physical you would do in the world or anything. I'm just saying you could think of it like that. Not relevant to navigation.
Well, now that you've conceded that you were just in Narnia, fine.
Well, it's just a way of thinking about it. It's not Narnia. It doesn't even have to be Narnia. It's just like, well, you could think of a sphere as being consistent of an infinite amount of infinitely flat planes. And of
Yeah.
course, considering it like that doesn't have any kind of useful function whatsoever.
So then why would you think about it?
The Earth curve and all that, right? That
Why
isn't-
would you think about it and fool everyone in the universities about it then?
I'm not going to go to a university and lay that down.
No, you're describing what they do
Do they?
by thinking, oh my gosh.
Do they actually say that?
Do they actually say what?
That a sphere is consistent of infinite amount of infinitely small flat planes? I don't think so.
What do you think a local horizon is?
Well, that's a different concept. That's like the locally flat effect. And it is kind of like a surreal situation where it is flat everywhere, but that means it's a sphere. Like, that's worse because it's not even a geometric concept. It's just pure cognitive dissonance between the flat and the ball. Right? Because those planes that are locally flat are not infinitely small, you see. There's the detail there.
Yeah, they are. When the fog rolls in, they get smaller and smaller.
Spheres, they don't have horizontals. It's not part of the
Infinitely
same
small.
geometry.
That's
Arvin,
correct.
you're convoluting a good discussion with the sidebar. That's what you're doing.
No, I brought up a subject and now I'm connecting it up to the subject that you were talking about.
A subject which you said has no bearing or usefulness with celestial navigation.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So
Is this the Celestial Navigation exclusive show? Sorry, we can't talk about other things?
no, we were talking about celestial navigation, where the origin of the vertex is, and you decided to play baller.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you admitted there's no usefulness to it. So it's a thought experiment in your head. Now that we've said that, can we get back to the matter of hand?
Fine.
Good to have you on board.
I'm being bored.
Bored? I don't think the truth is boring.
It's a devastating
When
ending
you hear it
argument.
every freaking day, the same over and over again.
Oh, you don't like the fact that we demolished the globe line with the black swan and celestial navigation over and over every day?
That was awesome 3 years ago. It's still awesome, but it gets boring though, a bit.
For who?
I don't find it boring
Are
at
the
all.
ones
I love it.
continually doing that? Me.
What do you think the 8 housekeeping questions are every day?
Short. That's what I know they are.
No, they're not always short. Sometimes we don't even get through one of them. It takes a whole show sometimes.
I'm enjoying this conversation, but I'm really sorry to ask. Sorry to ask and interrupt. Arvin, any chance you can just turn the gain on your mic down just a smidge, because she's just a bit overbearing. Thank you.
The gain is literally at the absolute possible minimum.
The Blue Yeti, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about right.
So I can't turn it down any further.
Okay. I think it's just the fact that I've turned down the power is now starving at a voltage when it's running at a low power rating. Do you know what I mean? So I've turned the voltage up to +8% and turned the power down to 88% of 100, and it now works. It stopped falling over. I read up online. Why has everyone else stopped talking? Oh shit, I'm off mute. Yeah, you weren't supposed to be privy to that conversation. That was with my wife. Can you carry on talking? It just dawned on me that no one else was talking.
I thought you were talking out.
So 88%.
I was just telling. Might as well fill you in on that conversation now, right? This morning it just kept on falling over, and the reason it fell over prior to me tinkering was because I'd in the hot days it was just overheating, right? Which it hadn't done up until now. So I've turned the power down. Now, when you turn the power down, you think, okay, well that'll solve the problem. It's just going to pull less power. But as it transpires, when reading up online from people who are overclocking and undervolting, contrary to what you might think, when they undervolt, turn the voltage down, they have to turn the power up. And you're like, well, you're undervolting to get the thing to use less power. Why would you turn the power limit up? And it's like, well, because when it's running at a lower clock speed, slower, it can be starved of power. So you're like, okay, so if I'm doing the opposite, that would be to say I'm turning the power down, opposite to what a overclocker's doing, then I actually need to turn the voltage up. Yeah, makes sense? So that's what I've done. So I've turned the voltage up, and it's now solved the problem. And it seems, as soon as I say these things, the damn thing will collapse and fall over. Anyway, that was boring. I wasn't intending that to make it to air. I was hoping you would carry on your conversation while I just explained to my wife how I got the computer working. Anyway, can we just pretend that conversation didn't happen? Thank you.
So in Discord, is R available to speak, or is R still missing from the equation?
How many flat planes does it take to make a sphere?
Anyone in Discord see if R is still there or trying to get on?
He's still here.
So did he
You guys
want
would
to
be
speak, or
surprised
was
who
that someone
is.
wanting him to speak?
What's that?
Did he show a desire to talk, or was that someone hoping he would talk?
I haven't seen him talk yet. And he's a familiar
No.
guest. He was on before. I'm not going to say who he is. I'll ruin the surprise if he comes on. But
Well.
you guys are all aware of our.
No, we're not aware of R. We can't find it.
Why
I
is
guess
I'm not
no
off mute again,
R.
am I? So I was going through the same thing with my wife, and suddenly there was a silence. I'm like, I'm not off mute again, am I? While I go through the same bloody thing. My wife's not normally
Don't
in the
worry.
room. We've had a lot of disasters today. So my wife and I are conversing over various disasters that we've had. Anyway.
All right. Well, there's no 50. There's no R. It's just us. I gotta go in 10 minutes. So Nathan, the video you released today, is that the fully edited, cleaned up version?
Sorry, I'm talking about batteries and cars and stuff. What
The video you released today on YouTube, is that the fully edited, cleaned up version of Matthew Learns?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a good video.
Yeah, hacked out all the
Yeah,
silence, all the fluff, and just left the debating points and edited out all the swearing.
Yeah, he put himself into a bind when you got him to admit to a sextant, if it's measuring angles, required a flat baseline, and if it's triangulation, then it's a flat earth. And the very next thing he said was, but it's trilateration. So he's thinking a sextant, while in the navigator's hand, is sending a ping, some kind of electronic signal to a receiver, because that's how trilateration works. With known distances, electronic ping with a receiver from a GPS type of unit. So he's got that so cockamamie confused in his head. Mr. Sensible tried this with Mitchell from Australia a couple of years back. Yeah, this is a great conversation 10th is having with 10th.
You asked 10th to stop rumpusing 10th.
Exactly. I've told you 9 times, don't rumpus 10th. One more time.
Near silence again. What's going on?
No.
No, no one's talking, Nathan.
We're just-
I'm trying to get something going.
I can't. I've got a lot on my plate. As much as if there's no conversation, I've just got to end the live stream.
All right, I'll blabber on like crazy.
I've got so much shit on my plate. I'm trying to keep everyone happy because everyone's moaning at me because I can't have a live stream because the computer keeps falling over. Now I've got the computer finally running. You know, I do need to sort stuff out with my wife. Otherwise, if I can't do that and it's just dead air, it's just no point in having a show.
Yeah, I'm not moaning at you, and I got to go in a few minutes. So do what you got to do.
I'm actually.
We got a
moaning at
storm
you.
here. Trash can rolling out. God's rolling out the trash.
Don't mean to give
Weird.
you my stress. I just need a few minutes to be able to discuss what I'm doing logistically with my wife. Hopefully, while a live stream continues. Thank you.
Yo. Now, I've been really liking the recent shows with Matthew Learns and McKeegan and all that. And I'm really surprised that these guys keep like coming back. Like that's the craziest part about it all. Is because if I'd been like in that position, however, and then done that and then watched it back or something, I'd be mortified. So I really think these guys are genuinely insane.
It's living rent free in your head syndrome, and they've got to solve it. But every time they come back, they help the other side of the argument more than their own.
That's exactly what I.
But do they have any actual self-awareness in this sense? Or are they so absorbed by their belief in the material that they just don't even see what they're doing anymore? I really wonder. Because
it's called self-deception, Arvin. When all the input is what you have is globe, heliocentric, and in that same input, anything flat earth is archaic and tinfoil hat, they only can act towards that information that they have as memory. Until new information replaces old information, they will just go in this cycle of craziness.
right, but my specific concern is about their inability to separate their own conduct from involving in that belief and not just objectively observe and analyze their own behavior. Because if they would see like there's something really wrong here. Doesn't matter what it's about. It's the way it's happening. It's just wrong. It's something really wrong.
You're able to see it because of objective reasoning. They're in subjective mode. There is no objective reasoning there. They're in this paradigm, and feelings and beliefs rule over logic and reason.
He put his livelihood on the line. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Ooh.
Right, I'm done now. My wife has now got her marching orders and got stuff to do. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to be stroppy. I'm just very, very stressed out today.
Yeah, don't feel guilty, Nathan. If you got to take the day off, take it off. No one's. I'm not
Hey, don't
moaning
send
at
him
you.
away.
No,
No,
everyone-
when a
you
man's
say
got a
that.
full plate,
You say that, but
when a man's
We
that's a
finally got our
nice-
Nathan back.
It's a nice sentiment, but in reality, I do get moaned at a lot by often people saying, "Oh, we don't mind." Anyway, yeah, just so the audience is privy to what happened today. So I drove my kid to an art class, which we do every single Tuesday. It's about 25 miles away, and about 2/3 of the way, the car just started overheating randomly. A load of warning lights came up. I'm like, oh crap! Pulled over, let the car cool down, limped it back to the garage, which took an eternity, and the head gasket's blown. So that car is now a write-off because it's $3K to get it fixed, which we haven't got. So we're going to have to scrap it. And the car that we took off the road, which is God only knows in what condition, we'll have to put back on the road and figure out a way of squeezing the two kids into it again. Because it's a little sports car that we couldn't afford to keep on the road. So we sawn it, took it off the road. My God, am I glad we didn't sell it. Because now we're going to have to, with a car that's essentially a complete total loss, that one, which was horrendous to keep on the road, it was expensive to maintain and keep on the road. Hence, we replaced it in the first place. But at least we've got it. So we'll have to probably pump a ton of money into that crappy little Audi sports car so that we've got a car. But that logistically is a bit of a pain in the arse because it's off the road, no tax, no MOT. It doesn't start. So we'll have to figure out how to get that running to get it down to the garage to get an MOT. And then we're going to have to figure out how to get a car that's got a blown gasket back to here so we can stick it on eBay for £1. We've just dumped 700 quid into it in new tyres and new brakes and new all sorts of shit and a service. So after literally last week, dumping a shit ton of money into it, it's now a complete loss, which is always the sodding way with a car. You buy new tyres for it and then it goes bang. Anyway.
Yep.
you sell piece by piece and get some of it back.
No, I'll just put it on eBay for £1 and if we get 50 quid, that'll be it. It
Yeah,
just
but
needs to be,
you can't sell the tires to someone.
In an ideal world, yeah, you could, but we live in an apartment. I can't just have that car sat outside. I will get moaned about. It will get moaned about almost immediately if it's not being driven around. So the moment it sits in the car's parking space for more than a day, people are going to want rid of it. And if I don't, I'll get in trouble. Anyway, that's not a particular issue. I will just sell it for as little as it can go for on eBay for £1, with an accurate description of what it is. You know, it's had a fair amount of money spent on it, but it's lasted 4 years and it cost 850 quid initially. It then had about £3,000 dumped into it to make it reasonable because it was an old and tatty car. Well, unfortunately, he's obviously got an underlying fault that led to the head gasket being blown even after I have kept it well maintained and serviced. But there we go, such is life.
Well, head gasket maintenance is quite difficult, actually.
Well, yeah, other than just maintaining it and making sure it's got nice oil and clean plugs and filters all changed. That's what you do when you service a car, right? As long as you've done all that stuff, there's not a great deal else you can do. How can you preemptively maintain a head gasket? You can't. Anyway, it's just one of those. It's an old car and it's served its purpose for 4 years, and it was funded and paid for in the first instance by Patreon. When I first got Patreon, that was what I used it for. You know, raising money to get that car. Because at the time I was walking around constantly while my wife was working, and I had no means of getting to the shows on time, and I was really struggling to actually go out to these classes, which I will now return to doing. But there we go. That's why I funded the car, so I could actually be at home rather than walking up and down with a pram when it was just Eleanor. Anyway. I'm sure I'll
Welcome
resolve
to
it.
my world.
Yeah, I get it, Neil. You know, you've sucked up all the sympathy for car problems.
Yeah, I tried to tell that we're Detroit. Don't even put it up today. But I don't think he understood what I meant.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'm not knocking you, Neil. You know, you've got your issues, and I'm glad that there's a means for you to resolve them through this show. That is a testament. Okay, it would be just hypocritical if I continually praised how wonderful the community is, only to then, you know, demean your use of that community to help you. You know, you're as much a part of this team as I am. You know, you're a very valued member of the G Plus panel. Therefore, why shouldn't you? And I don't begrudge it you in any way, shape, or form. If I did, I'd be a hypocrite, because it's like, no, that is part and parcel of the wonder of this community that I praise so often. So no, you know, it's good that you can get those problems resolved. I mean, I am going to moan that you have sucked up all the sympathy.
Well, I'm $235 away, so I'll get it somehow. So I don't even want him to run it anymore. You're in more of a need than I am.
Right, exactly. And at the moment, I'm just pleased having up the voltage on this GPU. Should I say it? Dare I say it? I'm confident it'll work tomorrow. Oh, God, I can't believe I just said that.
Speaking of tomorrow, I've got a jet, so I'll catch you tomorrow then.
Okay.
All right.
Later.
See you
Bye-bye.
later.
Later then.
And,
Yeah, plus it's a complete killjoy thing to moan about such things, isn't it? Hence me not wanting to be live to the general public. The members are going to be a lot more sympathetic to my plight, whereas your general Joe who's watching Flat Earth debate, I wouldn't care. You know, if there's a videographer moaning about their hard times, that puts me off. So you're like, on the one hand, you can't help what's going on in your life, but on the other hand, you're like, yeah, that's going to alienate your audience pretty badly. So probably best to not mention it on live streams. Just stick to what people actually have come to the show for, which isn't you moaning about your car breaking, potentially begging for a computer that's failed, or whatever it is that you're putting your hand out for, you know, alongside all the moans and justifications for it. It's like, nah, that's not what people come to the show for. And that's why, I'm sure I said it a couple of days ago when we were talking about the computer, and indeed earlier with Arvin. Is he still here? He is still here. I was like, yes, you can just chuck cash at this computer, but it's already had cash thrown at it, and it just requires time. So it's unreasonable. And if I put a limit on how long I'll faff around with the computer to get it stable, and then if at the end of that time limit I still can't succeed in getting it stable, then you run a GoFundMe. But you can't just run back-to-back GoFundMes all the time. And included in that is other people's campaigns, because as much as the community is wonderful to us, you don't want to take the piss. You know, and given that Neil's just had his hand out, it's like, well, it's unreasonable to ask that of the community at this point, which is a little bit why I'm a bit distressed. It's like, I can't just ask the community to help me out at this moment, especially not for a car. But it's just one of them, you know, it's unreasonable to run constant GoFundMes. So you've got to leave a bit of time between them. And the next one I want to do should be directly related to the show. So if I'm going to do another GoFundMe, it would be in 3 or 4 months' time when the warranty runs out on this computer, so I can get it stable if I failed in that time period. You know, sod's law, it'll be completely running smoothly by the time the warranty runs out, in which case I don't care, because I'm not going to be stressing it or tinkering with it and potentially damaging it when it's out of warranty. While it's in warranty, yeah, I'll stress the living crap out of it to make sure it doesn't fall over for the next 5 years. So there is a limited window to get these things tinkered to death so that they do work on the live shows each day. And based on the performance right now, having done one change, just up the voltage on the GPU, everything's working. RAM, good temperature. CPU, working. 97 degrees centigrade. But that's normal, as I explained to John the other day. You know, that's normal. So that's okay. GPU, 88C, very hot. But it is running a game to keep it stressed. And that's the maximum that I would want it to reach, and it's reaching it. So you're like, okay, everything seems okay. It's not falling over. It's not overheating. It's just very hot. So, you know.
Nominal.
Everything's nominal. Appearing in name only. I don't understand that terminology. Can anybody explain that to me? I remember 2 years ago maybe watching Jaren, and he broke it down. He was like, well, what does nominal actually mean? It means appearing in name only. Okay, right, that bit's easy enough to understand. Why the hell do they use the word then?
maybe it's actually a secret signal that it's all a LARP. Like, we're now going to the next step of the procedure within the theater in name only. I don't know.
Well, I don't know either.
It's a weird choice, though.
Shout out to Joe Vilcomer, who says, "Here's some cash because you're awesome." Well, thank you very much. Also, shout out to Tom, who says, "Talk a bit about your Twitter account. It confuses me." My Twitter account confuses you? Is he talking to me? All I use Twitter for is to tweet the show. That is literally all it does. So every day the show goes out. I don't tweet both shows. I just tweet the after show. So each day I will tweet the uncut and after show and any videos that I've done work on. So that's what I tweet. Other than that, there's nothing on there. People tweet me and I don't read them. By pure chance, when I was tweeting out one of the shows or one of the edited videos, I forget which, I just by chance saw a Simon Danner tweeted me with "you and your reference frames are ruined," end quote. That was the tweet that he sent me, proactively contacting me to rub in my face how dead the Globe's claim of 2 reference frames and drift at 15 degrees an hour are. But if it hadn't been for me tweeting out the show at that point, I wouldn't have seen that message, and I don't read them. I don't read through. I don't know how to use Twitter. Literally, because it's on YouTube, there's a button to post on Twitter. I press that, and within YouTube's software, it posts to Twitter. And I basically never see Twitter other than when it flashes up for me to press the button that says post. And then behind what I'm posting, so in the foreground, I've got my tweet that I'm about to post with the show. And behind that is all the crap that people send me that I don't read. And like I say, it just so happened that one time that behind what I was tweeting, Simon Dan, I'm like, what's that? Simon Dan at Nathan Oakley 1980. So obviously I stopped tweeting what I was tweeting and read it. Good job I did, because he's never lived it down. Anyway, maybe you can explain, Tom, why my Twitter confuses you. I don't understand what you mean. Thank you for the super chat, both of you.
Well, I think that everything you could explain about it, you just did. So maybe he was confused. Like, where's the live show announcement? Anyway, he's probably not going to do another super chat to rebuttal.
Well, he's in the members only live stream. He doesn't need to super chat to get my attention now, because I'll obviously be looking at the chat feed to see what he says. What was going on with 50 earlier? You said he went because we were talking about elevation angles. Is that actually the case? He just went because we got to a point where he'd have to say Earth is flat and knew that that was what was coming and then buggered off.
You mean me?
Asking the
I don't know,
Discord server.
I came in late. I was there earlier even when he was talking before I left. And it did ask me when the show was on, so it did seem kind of keen to be on the show maybe or listen to you. So I don't know why the reason he left. It may just been a legit reason, like how I had to leave too. Anyways, that's it.
Yeah, it was presented with a question, and it didn't answer. He left when the show started.
He just came back yesterday. Why. I said he just came back. Well, he just came back yesterday and said it's been away for a while. So, because I did ask him where he's been, so he took a break, I think. But yeah.
But they still show his Google search skills. Any question he's confronted, he goes to Google to ask.
Well,
like the rest of them.
That would be fine because that would be sticking with the narrative, right? I mean, be in advance.
Yeah, and then in the end, he said that he questions the figures of the government. How silly is that?
I round this show out then.
Ah, finally
What?
have a rainstorm here.
I don't know what to
Awesome.
say. Every time I have to have a conversation with my wife, I get dead air, and I've got to say, hold on a second.
Yeah, don't worry about it. We're just taking it easy.
Yeah.
Taking
Okay.
it
Well,
easy.
it's nice that you're taking it easy while I'm.
Well, let's do a bit of housekeeping then. How about that?
What? That's something that I've got to do.
Unless you got to do something, that's fine.
Nice to know you can depend on people, isn't it?
10th man can go through housekeeping. He's done it before. Oh, he's not here no more. Oh well, there goes that plan.
You could just retitle the show "Dead Air Special." You know, then I don't gotta worry about it.
Yes. Yes. How 20 guests managed to let dead air through.
Everybody might think you crashed and then start talking again.
Well, Radius R doesn't want to open his mic, so I think would be interesting to hear what he has to say from a global point of view.
Yeah, I would love to hear that.
Hey, I just noticed something about the G Plus. I think that you as the owner can actually kick people out here. Did you know that, Nathan?
Yeah, of course I knew that.
I didn't. Interesting.
Well, I did. I've come very close with all of you.
I bet you have.
Hey, wait a second. I got threatened last week, and that's the first time I've heard that ever to a panel member.
Yeah, so clearly I knew, as I threatened Neil with it the other day. If you can't shut up, I'll kick you out. Meaning, I know damn well how to kick you out.
I thought you were just saying it symbolically.
No.
Right?
No.
Okay.
Anyway,
And the funny
Now
thing
I
is, I
know.
didn't say. Hold on. The funny thing is, I hardly said anything that show.
and
I know one time I tried to say something. I was like,
get threatened to get kicked
Boom
out.
you.
Right, shout out to Original D-Rose. Not much I know, Nathan, but hopefully it'll help buying at least one spark plug or maybe even the gasket seal. Sorry about your vehicle issue. Thank you. I really appreciate the sentiment and the support. Thank you, D-Rose.
D-Rose is a good guy. Kiwi gives him a hard time.
I tell him off
He's a
too.
pretty good guy.
I've said the same things to him. Shut up!
I'm telling you, it's just the
thrives
timing.
on it all.
People you're the meanest to that give you the most support. It's terrible, really.
Nah, D-Rose has a lot of energy, but he doesn't mind all of that. It comes with the territory.
Well, it's like the girl thing. The worse you treat them, the more they come after you.
Well, the more inspired you are, the more likely you will ruffle people's feathers. That's just how it works. He knows that. I know that.
When he did that impersonation of QE, I really thought it was QE. I was cracking up when it was him.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Yeah.
Funny. As long as he doesn't impersonate a Southern person anymore. Stick to impersonating QE, you're doing good.
I want to hear D-Rose do a Dumpty clip in QE's voice.
He may be the next numpty clip.
Oh, maybe you could turn your Numpty clips into karaoke
No, that was me
songs
saying
like
that. That was just me. It was an impression.
What?
That wasn't really QE speaking. It was me.
Right.
QE.
Somebody's using a soundboard.
So what's going on out there? I could
I'm
bring
waiting
in
for
some
QE to say something.
non-fire shit.
When I hear QE's voice, I yield.
Got the discharge law.
When I hear QE's voice, I'm just immediately analyzing whether he had breakfast or not.
Just got done.
Ah, you sound like you just have, yeah.
Shut up.
Your voice literally changes.
I
The
would have
way
it
the
done no
sound
matter
comes
what.
out of your throat changes after you've had breakfast.
Shut the hell up.
Hey, is that how you work? It's so cool, man.
The engineer.
Did you finally hear that thing from Dell?
Oh God, what
Yes.
does he do now?
How do you like that? Science is breaking things.
But that wasn't more or less. That was more or less from his guest.
Yeah, I told you. Guess.
Whatever, whoever that
Say it.
numpty was.
I
No
don't know.
discharge line.
Yeah, he has pretty random people on at times. So
Well, you'd have to play it to get the context. So, I mean, without playing it, you're just, speaking about a event that no one knows what you're talking about. Oh,
well, play it then.
I can't play it.
Who's gonna play it?
Better one is that James Thor scientist guy.
James Tor, that's a name out. It's bringing up the past, man. Long time ago.
I knew you knew about him.
Stop running the.
Yeah, I ran across him way back in the day, and something he pissed me off, and then I just went another direction. I didn't hear too much after him. I didn't follow him or anything.
He's in a debate with Dave Farina.
Yeah, I seen part of that. That's not a debate. Dave Farina is a retard. We've smoked him on this show how many times?
Yep.
The freaking cream of wheat, numpty dipshit. He thinks the sun rises in the west and sets in the east in the southern hemisphere. And then laughs about it that people don't understand what he's saying. He can't believe the stars spinning. He's on a John LeBon wagon back in, I think, whoever started that, and I think it was Timmy Clown, officially, who started that. No, I remember when I first got out here, right? It was just days. And I heard that shit. I never heard anything like that in my life, right? And they said that stars spin in different directions. And I was like, wait a sec. First of all, I never thought about it. It's the first time I ever heard a claim such as that. And I sat there for about 15 seconds and I said, are these people retarded? But there was no rebuttal. For the longest time, there was no rebuttal. I just sat back. I said, I'm not going to do anything. I mean, this is ridiculous. I think I mentioned it to Bassano one time, just it was offline. I said, can you believe this? And he was off on another tangent, so he wasn't paying that much of attention. So I just dropped it and sat back and just listened to flat earthers. That's what I did. Yeah, no comeback. If there was, I didn't hear it. Now, that doesn't mean there was a comeback, but it didn't circulate if there was. Because it was the longest time, 6-8 months. That's what we're dealing with here. They're not the problem. It's flat earthers that are a problem. They don't think. We're going to go over some of that today on QE Live.
Cool.
Sounds like a scary show.
Not scary. People can't think on their feet. They get diverted and off in different directions depending on what their quote unquote opponent says, right? This red herring fact, they're just chasing. It happens today. I listen to it all the time. I can't believe it.
Like for instance, when you're talking about the black swan, they start going to the bendy cranes and all of that stuff.
Well, something like that, but a little bit more
Then they go into refraction and everything.
insidious. No, they'll be on a topic getting ready for the kill shot, and then Numpty Baltard brings up an incoherent tangent, and they try to chase that down, forgetting what they're talking about before.
Oh, I see you saying we're not staying on the point. They
Yes.
get moved away real quick.
Oh, real like the power of suggestion with most people. Look out, right? It's over with. That's enough to have me stop and just go clean the bathroom. Yeah, because it's not now. When we first got here, I let it go, right? Because people were just getting their, position and their feet under them, and it was chaos, right? So I let it go for the most part. Not anymore. Not after 7 years. There's certain things that I will just not fucking tolerate, and it's not rocket science either. Oh, sorry, I swore.
Yeah, but 7 years. You're right. Everybody should know what's going on by now, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Now,
Now, the
it's
new
like what we
Unless they're just hard learned and stubborn.
No,
That could
no.
never
I'm
happen,
not
right?
talking about rocket surgery topics either. I'm talking about, basic stuff.
Yeah. Well, maybe they're just stubborn about it. Maybe they're like, we don't want to use that argument, like Bev.
You don't want to use that argument.
Well, that's called retarded.
Yeah, welcome to Flat Earth. There's a lot of
That's
it.
why they don't have any arguments. I mean, I very rarely hear any flat earth proofs from anyone. I really don't. They're just in there to hear themselves talk, right? Little social time. I have to get my feelings out. Shut the fuck up and get the hell out.
Nice way.
Sorry about that.
Feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah, and story time.
Yep. Or they're talking out their butts, right? They
Well, the
think they know
problem
about
about story time is if you don't have a rigorous discipline of figuring out what is real and what isn't, if you don't have a debating culture, then somebody could just roll out a story that sounds really awesome, and then nobody corrects it, even if it's wrong. And then it will just keep repeated for years and years, and nobody's going to correct it because you don't
Yeah,
have
like-
a debating culture. Nobody does the research.
Yeah, like upward rising Earth.
Or dielectric acceleration shit.
Well, we're going to talk
Ether.
about. I don't think we're going to talk about that. We're going to turn around and go back to gravity. That's for sure, because that's what everyone's talking about, gravity again for some reason. It's just in the cycle, right?
It's
So
a heavy
wait.
cycle.
Hold on a second. Gravity's been destroyed, and people are
Yes.
talking about it again. Oh, that's brilliant.
Now they're not only even talking about it. Gravity, Baltards, they just can't give it up because they think it's their saving grace or something. I don't know. You have to get into that mind. Good luck. But it's the flat earthers now, not now, but it's been for some time now, trying to replace gravity with some other horse shit that they made up. So, and they're guilty of the same techniques and tactics that got us into this mess in the first place. That's the problem. And they're too stupid
Right.
to realize it because they've
Right.
got their
Well,
own
what
idiot.
they replace with gravity, though?
It's NASA replacement syndrome, right?
What they replace with gravity?
Yeah.
Incoherent dielectric acceleration, their ether horse shit that has nothing to do with that, by the way. Upward rising earthers, that sort of vein.
Well, doesn't dielectricity actually alter? You could suspend water and other objects with dielectricity.
Oh
You
boy,
show that?
really? Show that in nature.
I
Show
think
it in
that's
nature.
Phenomena observed, please.
What's this dielectric suspension unit that I'm hearing
Yeah,
of?
right.
You can suspend things with dielectricity. I thought dielectricity was a component of something, a way of describing something's characteristics. It's not an actual thing.
Oh
is
yeah,
it?
sure. Yeah, you're correct on that. I was just trying to prove a point.
And how
It
is
was
like
just a question.
electricity, water, right? I mean, really?
Well, he was trying to
Wouldn't
prove a point
dissipate?
without a point.
No, I was
Well,
just asking
Wouldn't water
what other
just dissipate any static charge
gravity.
entirely?
I was
There
just
you go,
asking
chasing
what
it.
gravity. That's all. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. That's fine. You can bring that stuff up. You asked the question, I answered it. So you got it, right?
Yep. And then
Yeah,
I asked another question, and it kind of spiraled
Yeah,
out of
that's
there.
fine.
But it's okay. It's fine.
No, go ahead. You got another question? Go ahead.
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Who are we speaking to, by the way?
It was Shen, the Grandmaster Wizard.
Dan the Grand. Really? Is that his full name?
Say that again. Yeah, Shen
Is that
Chaos, Grandmaster.
fair enough? Thank you.
I only heard of Grandmaster Flash.
Oh man, here we go again. Let's talk about his name.
Come on, Grandmaster Flash is good. Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. You don't like rap.
What's
What?
wrong with my name?
Nothing.
Oh, okay.
Will everyone please stop talking about his name?
Yeah,
I
leave my
can't
name
what's
stand
up?
that. When people straight away go off into a tangent about nothing
Yeah.
from a very pertinent point off into nowhere. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right, Brian.
Sudden
Yep.
left wing turn.
I had to get
I'm sorry.
Grandmaster Flash in
I
there.
have a question. Can somebody explain to me what the black swan is?
Oh, brother.
Really?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been in here, so I just need a little refresher.
It's been 6 years?
No, 3.
Oh, right, 2020. Yeah, sorry.
It's simple. For the Earth to be a globe, the horizon must be geometric, because that's where all the globe's measurements would have to come from. The horizon is not geometric. That's the end of the Earth being a globe. It's that simple. That's the simplest way to explain it. So anyone who is talking about anything that is not geometric, no matter what they say.
Yeah, but what if the Earth isn't geometric? Because they say it's like an oblate spheroid or something.
Well, I don't know what they would answer that.
But it still has the same measurements, though, right? No matter what shape it is.
You can't measure something that's not geometric. Do you understand what the term geometric? Are you trolling us, or are these serious questions?
Well,
Well,
if you're going to
can't
measure
make
it
a
in one
statement
way,
like
it's
that
going to
and
be
be
that one
serious.
way.
No, you can't. This has to be a troll.
You can't say,
Well,
oh,
I'm
maybe
just
the Earth's not
asking.
geometric. Maybe there's no geometry to the things we. Come on.
Yeah, but
Well,
why does it have
you're
to
gonna
be
troll.
geometric? Then?
Improve the level of the trolling. Yeah?
Yeah.
I can't
No,
ask
but
a
it's-
simple question though.
What's geometry mean?
Who said it was geometric though? Who said the Earth was a perfect sphere?
No one said that. What does geometry mean? Then we'll get to the next one.
Okay, geometry. Well, what does that have to do with the shape of the Earth?
Measurement.
Look, this lad is either trolling us or he needs to go off and learn some things and come back. It's one or the other.
Ask him again
I
what
mean, they say
geometric
that
means.
is an oblate spheroid. That's not a geometric sphere.
Oblate spheroid. Hold on a second.
Ask him
Nathan had a
again.
question
Hold
for
on.
you. And we're gonna
Ask
get
him what
right
geometric
back.
means.
We're going to
He
get
hasn't-
right back to it.
He hasn't got there. Ask him what geometric means again.
What does geometric mean?
It's relating to geometry.
And what does that mean?
Regular lines and shapes. I don't know.
What does geo mean?
The ground. I don't know. Geography.
The Earth.
Earth.
Metric
Yeah.
means measurement. So Earth measurement is what geometry is. But you just asked what geometry has to do with the shape of the Earth. That's what you just asked.
Okay.
Yeah, I laughed out
So
loud when
it's-
you did it. I laughed.
Lines relative to the Earth.
Yeah, you asked what that had to do with measuring Earth. That's absurd. But it meant that you didn't
Okay.
understand what the word meant. You didn't understand what geometry meant.
Just a question. Thank you.
And the globe is not an oblate spheroid.
That's the
Geometrically.
next topic. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the next topic. The oblate spheroid nonsense. I'll tell you what. If you think that, then you better call NASA and have them redact 50 years of their bullshit photos. There, sunshine. We'll stop
No,
it right
they were
there.
photoshopped, Huey. Don't you know? They had
Well,
to.
we can just stop it right there. I'm sure Brian would go into great depths on why it's not an oblate spheroid, but I just cut it right off at in the ankles right there.
I could, but that's totally fine. I don't need to do it.
Yeah, I know you would, and I know you could.
Yeah, it's just from a they can't not have a perfect sphere due to the latitude and longitude grid. That's all I'd say.
Yeah, that's all you need to say. You could go on and on, obviously.
So, can you explain the black swan? Pretty thoroughly with using geometry.
Yeah, it's self-contained within the modus tollens. Do you want me to repeat the modus tollens to you?
Yes, please.
If the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, then every distance to horizon measurement can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, and the distance to horizon measurement in the black swan image is beyond 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. Therefore, the horizon is not Earth curve and the Earth is not a sphere.
Thank you.
Now repeat it back.
Now repeat it back.
I have trouble repeating that back.
Yeah, that's unfair. You should have it in front of you. Why didn't somebody post it for him? Are you in Discord?
Yeah.
All right, 1 second.
Well, if it's broken down into the constituent parts of the modus tollens, if Earth is a sphere, that's your P statement, right? Then every distance to horizon measurement can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. Q statement. Then, not Q. The distance to horizon is not as laid down in the maths because it's beyond 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. So you're reasserting the Q statement that every distance to horizon measurement can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. Now, admittedly, you might not know that off the top of your head unless you're, like we are, well acquainted with the Earth curve maths. But beyond the measurements, it's just the statement that you're going to have a horizon at a certain distance if Earth's a sphere. Earth's a sphere, P. Distance to horizon, Q. Distance to horizon beyond claimed measurement, not Q. Therefore, not P. Not Earth a sphere with a horizon as Earth curve.
Yeah, it's in live stream main text chat.
Huey also put it, yeah.
It's in live stream main text chat. Was that what you were saying, Jorge?
It's George, but yes, that's correct.
No, it's not. It's Jorge.
My avatar says George.
That's
That's
Jorge.
right.
It also
All right,
says
you good? You have any questions on that?
it also
Who-
says
who are we
Jorge.
speaking-
They're spelt the same.
Oh, we're on the names again. Are we done yet?
Important stuff.
So, who was the gentleman that was asking the questions?
George.
It wasn't Jorge.
It was Grand Wizard.
Oh, okay. Yep. Did that answer your question? If there's any problem with that, just bring it up.
No, I'm completely on your guys' side. I just have, somebody here who's never heard the argument, so I just wanted you guys to iterate that for them.
Our side? What side's that?
Well, flat Earth. I agree that the Earth is not a globe because that's a positive claim, and I understand that the positive claim is not true. So
It doesn't matter what side you're on. With you could just be a newbie and just look at the argument and then look at the evidence that supports the argument. There doesn't have to be any sides. It's just it is what it is. If I were to wax philosophical.
So where do you get the mathematical equation for the 1.22 times the square root of the observer's height? Where do you get that
They're
math
in the
from?
chat. They're in the chat.
That's not
No,
what
no.
he's
What's
asking.
the
No,
source of the
No, that's a
number?
fair question.
That's not what
That's
he's
a fair
asking.
question.
He's asking
You
where you
derive
get...
it from R.
Hello. He's asking, just so we clarify what he's asking. He's saying the P statement, if Earth's sphere, followed by the assertion in the Q statement, then every distance to horizon will be 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, shortened by me 1.22. What is it, 1.225? Something like that. Anyway, he's asking where we got that from. Correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Go ahead, QE.
Go ahead, Adam.
Go ahead, Arvin.
It's derived. So you take the R value and then you use geometrics. It's not exact. So there are some, because you're dealing with a ball so big and heights above the deck so small, you do kind of make a few mathematical assumptions. It's not 100% accurate, but it's accurate enough decimal places for you not to have to worry about, and you can accept the assumptions that H plus HO is equal to H simply. But it is just a derivation based on R. So obviously when you've got the circle and you're trying to figure out the point of intersection, you do need an R value for that. So it is underpinned, that 1.22 is underpinned by the 3959 R value. So if you've got a different R value, the 1.22 would be different.
Where did you get those? What's the source of these numbers for the equation?
Well, the R value.
It's a
derivation.
Hold on. Let's just clarify his question again. These are great. You're saying, where does the globe get their R value from? That's what you're asking, isn't it?
That's what he's asking.
Like
yes.
how do they measure or approximate? Where did they get that actual number from? They didn't just pull a number out of their hat and say this is what it's going to be. How did they actually get that? Where does these numbers come from? Who supplies these numbers to tell us
wait.
to go?
I'll tell you.
Wait, no, Adam, then Brian, if you don't mind.
But the numbers come from your claim. So you might want to take Eratosthenes, you might want to take Al-Biruni. But we're not just deriving the numbers from anywhere, but they are a consequent, as I said earlier, the formula is a consequent of the R value that all Earth believers claim exists. So where did you get it from? I don't want to upset you, but you got it from the distance to the horizon.
Hold on. Hold on. Sorry. Just 1 second. I'm really sorry. Okay, yeah, you got out exactly what I wanted you to, which is number one, it's your bloody claim. If you're in the positive position for the sphere Earth, you tell me where you got your R value from. But that bit, yes. And then further to that, Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, the calculations for your globe, right? Those calculations come from globe mathematics. The globe mathematics are back engineered from flat Earth elevation angles to Polaris. I have a 40-minute video on my channel explaining exactly where and showing exactly where, with no rebuttal, where their radius came from. They hijacked flat Earth elevation angles, flat Earth measurements. That's where they got their R value from. So it's a back engineering. And what Adam is trying to explain to you there is your height above, let's say, sea level will determine the distance to your horizon based on those mathematics that were a back engineering of flat Earth measurements. So we've got measurements, they've got math.
Put a couple sources in Discord at 40 minutes after the hour from Andrew Thomas Young, San Diego State, and the University of Washington.
Okay, that's what I wanted. Thank you, QE.
You're welcome.
If you want an official globe reference for the 1.225, go to Metabunk. That is the official globe reference.
You could see that, like Brian was saying, you could see that if you go to different Earth curve calculators, some of them, I haven't done it in many years. I don't know if they still do it. They'll have the calculation right there for you off to the side.
I've got it somewhere. Because Taboo did it, and then somebody asked me to check the derivation. And that's all it is. It's just using that, but it's just a standard derivation.
Yeah, it's based on Pythagorean formula.
Yeah, but with assumptions, because like I said, it does tend to just deal with straight lines and not bendy lines. So it does allow some assumption in there. It's not 100% accurate. When I checked it, like I said, the H plus HO is assumed to be H, put simply. So it's not spot on to what they claim the ball is, but it's as near as damn it, without putting in sort of 1,500 decimal points after stuff to make it super accurate. So,
Yeah, that's nonsense. It's accurate.
yeah. No, I'm being super geeky and super honest. There is a slight issue with it. It makes assumptions, like I said, but those assumptions that it makes the only difference at the 10 decimal points down. See what I mean? So,
you don't have to be honest with it. It's not your claim. Sorry, Kiwi.
That's what I was going to ask you. How many you're on it? Adam knows what I'm thinking. My next question was, well, at which decimal place does this occur? Yeah. 10, right?
yeah, well, if you think of it, you've got an R value of 3959 miles, and you've got 3959 plus 10 foot divided by 3959. Right. So just assume that it's 3959 is the point of some of the assumptions within the derivation, because what difference does 3,950 miles and 10 foot divided by an amount, what difference is it that if you then just divided by 3959? You see what I mean? It's so minute a difference that it's not worth worrying about, because it certainly won't be in your results.
So let's not worry about it from this point forward.
No, but I'll reiterate it again and again.
I'm sure you will.
Yeah, but Adam, you don't have to. It's not your claim. You just have to state the basics. You're not under any obligation to go into those decimal place, into the excusing of the decimal places.
No. You'd like to say it's their claim, and at worst, it's the only objection they could have is they're objecting to their own description of their globe. That's what you're objecting to. If you object to those numbers and that equation, that's all you're saying is, no, I don't think it is the size of ball as claimed. That's the only objection you have in there, unless you wanted to disprove the maths, which you won't, because it's been checked and it's there. So the only objection you're saying is that you think it's a ball of different size.
What does the black one put the radius to? I forgot that figure. Sorry, does anybody know that?
That again, one that I didn't hear.
I can't remember what does the black swan evidence put the suspected R value to if the ball was a globe?
Yeah. 250,000 miles for the R value.
Right, yeah.
I think it's even more, Adam.
if it's at 10 feet. You forget, you got to go by the height. I'm sorry, you got to go by the distance the horizon is away. So we really, in the Black Swan, we really don't know exactly what it is. I can tell you it's more than 20 miles, but all we need is 10 miles.
I think I remember. Sorry.
No. Does he follow that?
Yeah, that's Tom for the super chat. I won't interrupt any further.
Oh yeah, QA, I get it. Yeah, I get it. I was just sort of letting the Master Mason sort of think about that implication of the Black Swan. Yeah, we don't know the distance. Well, there's no distance to the horizon, but if the horizon was a physical location in the Black Swan, yeah,
we can safely say it's 10 miles in the original Black Swan photo because it's behind platform habitat at 9.43, right? So we can safely say it's at least 10 miles. That's all we need, because then you do Pythagorean formula and you find that the radius should equal 264,000 miles. If it's 12 miles away, it's 380,000 miles. 15 miles, it's 594,000 miles away. If it's 20 miles, the radius of the Earth, their fairy tale balltard, is 1,056,000 miles. You're getting the picture here. Yeah? Good.
When BLMSB saw 31 miles from 1 foot observation, I think the radius was 2.5 million miles, their effective radius.
Oh, that effective radius, that's some horse shit. Don't swear. What does that even mean?
It means we're seeing too far. That's actually what it means.
No, yeah, the effective radius. How does that differ? So the radius of the Earth, as purported by the Baltard spinning space monkeys, is 3959. What's the effective radius? And then define that. That's rhetorical, by the way, because no one's going to do it.
Well, I don't know what effective. I mean, what does the word effective like? What does that? How is that defined?
That's my question.
Yeah.
And then how does it impact the actual value that they run around with? Compare and contrast the juxtaposition, please. I'd like to hear that coherently.
Maybe they should have called it the needed radius.
Yeah, right. Titanium in Discord. But have you spoken yet? Yeah. Hello? You put some comment. You've been chat skanking in here. So one of his statements is, "Oh, you're at work, so we'll deal with one of your statements." So why can't a Modus Tollens statement be written for the flat Earth? Go ahead.
It can.
Yeah.
Nobody said it couldn't.
Do we have to?
Maybe it's
just
just a
has
bad phraseology. Why hasn't it? Maybe a better question.
How about for an aspect of the flat Earth? There's many of them. If you go on my website, there's a few of them associated with flat Earth. If I'm not mistaken.
Suppose you could do one. Suppose you could do one using a GP position of the sun.
Let me see if I can't scare one up. I think I did one with flight, didn't I? That's rhetorical one.
I think he did, because that's what first came to my mind. So it's like
yes, okay. Yeah. All right, here we go. Right from my website, right at the bottom of flight. Modus Tollens, if P, then Q, not Q, therefore not P. If commercial planes travel at 500 mile an hour for 2 hours, that's 1,000 miles, over a sphere tard, with a radius of 3959 miles, P, it would then have to descend, negotiate 128.3 miles of vertical drop over the course of its journey. Q. Commercial planes do not descend 128.3 miles while traveling at 500 miles an hour for 2 hours, i.e., they fly level. That's not Q. Therefore, the Earth is not a sphere-tard. I guess that's not one with the flat Earth, though. That's still pounding away. I don't know. It depends on how you look at it.
That's flat Earth. I was talking about that with my brother the other day. That is definitely flat Earth. What else is it?
I suppose you'd have to make it in maybe a modus ponens or something.
Yes, that's what I
it-
was
it-
thinking. I know where he's going with that. I never really thought about it. I'm sure we could come up with one.
I think a
if the Earth
GP of the
is
sun
flat,
using an elevation angle would do it.
Yes. Go ahead and formulate it. You don't have to do it now. I'm just saying, go ahead and do it. Somebody do it.
Brian was just doing
Yeah, I
something.
was thinking,
All right, let Brian do it then.
yeah, this may not be. This is just straight off my head. So, if the Earth is flat, then airline pilots won't have to account for curvature. Airline pilots don't have to account for curvature, so the Earth is flat.
Yeah, there you go. That's a simple one.
Beautiful.
We all good?
Say again?
I said we all good. The guy asked if why there isn't any. Well, why hasn't anybody done one is a fair enough question, but now somebody has. We're just hoping for a response, that was all.
Yeah, he hasn't posted a response in chat, Skank.
He's in the live chat though, right?
Yes,
He's in voice chat, I mean.
he is in voice chat. Yes. That's how I got the question.
Quick question. If you was to pose that question with the modus tollens regarding flat Earth, would you not be then accused of begging the question of assuming a flat Earth?
No. Why
No,
would we?
because sorry.
No, I'm asking why would we? It's modus. Modus. Are you saying a modus tollens is begging the question?
No, but when the modus tollens was presented to ballers, it was a caveat with, well, we're begging the question with them, but then to debunk it within the begging of the question, if the Earth was a sphere. So when you say if the Earth was flat, is it again not begging the question then? I appreciate it being wrong. I'm just asking.
No, it's not. Formal logic is not logically fallacious. That should be your first clue.
It's fair enough though. It's because we spend so much time dealing with logical inconsistencies, otherwise known as logical fallacies, that when you lay down a logical consistency, people are like, well, what's this? You're like, no, this is this is what we strive for. This is the logical consistency. It's maybe alien to people who typically come here and hear us battling off ballers, because that's not what they provide ever. So it's very rarely discussed, right? But maybe we'll get a bit more into logical consistency. Now we've got globe earthers offering us the logical consistency of, if you're measuring Earth flat with 90 degrees to the baseline of a triangle at the GP of a star, then Earth is flat. But that's not modus tollens, that's modus ponens. If A then B, A therefore B. Is that correct? Is that modus ponens?
Yes.
Yeah, but it's still a logical consistency. It doesn't really matter what the name of the logical consistency is. It's just, is it consistent with logic or not? If it is, then it's a logical consistency. If it isn't, ergo the premise is assumed in the first instance, or you're utilizing something that's non sequitur to prove the assumption in the first instance, or whatever it is, we're pointing out how inconsistent that logic is, or how flawed the logic is. And at the point that you point out that there is a flaw in logic in what they've claimed, then that's all it is. It's not consistent with good logic. There's no other way to phrase it. But I don't know. like I say, once you start presenting stuff that is consistent with logic, it just seems alien to people who have just dealt with us dealing with logical inconsistencies for such a prolonged period of time. So it does make sense that Sensual Goat saying that to me.
Titanium has a rebuttal. He said, if the Earth is flat, then every horizon distance measurement must be no less than the size of flat Earth.
But you see, the thing is, right, okay, that's fine. The thing is, that's an inability to recognize where we do not have a claim. So he's offering up a logical consistency or inconsistency fallacy, whatever, to demonstrate that when we measure the horizon for a flat Earth, we don't. You know, the use of the horizon to make an assertion of a sphere Earth is a positive claim that sphere Earthers make. But there is no contrapositive or equivalent that flat Earthers make. We don't use the horizon to claim the Earth is flat, in other words. Therefore, to offer up a modus tollens and say, well, therefore Earth is not flat when you measure the flat Earth horizon, what were we measuring it for? We weren't. Just because your use of the horizon fails doesn't mean that you need to project your horizon failure onto me as a flat earther. I don't have a claim about it.
You can't force the comparison either, and this is where the use of logic in their claim. So we can define the horizon in their point because it is a physical geometric obstruction. Now, when that's then tried to be turned around to the flat earthers, they're trying to force a claim on you that the horizon is in some way commensurate with what they claim the horizon is. Theirs has to have a distance. It has to create an obstruction. We know that the horizon is an optical effect based on limitations of the lens. So why can you, and this is where the logic falls apart, there is no logical consistency when you try to formulate from a flat Earth, because what are you pinning that horizon to? You know logically it isn't anything physical. You know it's an optical breakdown, but then you're going to try and ascribe a distance to an optical breakdown. That's where the logic falls apart, and the two worldviews differentiate between what the horizon is. It has to have an obstruction on a ball, and therefore the horizon has to be constituted in some way of physicality. That's not the case, and it's not the definition of horizon. But it's their definitions that we hold them to apply the logic to.
You just bear with me, guys, in G plus 1 second. Ills G. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, sorry, was I hot micing?
Yes, you were. Hold on.
Going by what?
Hold on. Oh, he's done it. It's okay. Go ahead, Brian.
Sorry, I thought he'd already done it, Nathan. No, going by Titanium's response there, from what I heard, what he is proposing is that over a flat plane, the horizon would only be at the ends of the flat plane. So what he's basically stating there, I don't know if he does realize it or not, is that the horizon is not an optical phenomenon, but it's provably and proven an optical phenomenon by the fact that it's not geometric. So you can't deny perspective and you can't deny evidence, because that's what you'd have to deny, that perspective exists and evidence that the horizon is not geometric, which is not physical. So there's no, his modus tollens is not a proper modus tollens, it's flawed, because it's lacking logic to begin with.
Can I bring a topic up, please?
Yeah, feel free, Brian.
No!
All right, John. I've just posted two 24-hour alleged time lapses of the South Pole. And although one shows a mountain range, the other one shows no mountains whatsoever. Where that was taken, I don't know. But what did strike me, and I'd like John and all of you to put your head around this, If the Earth is tilted at 23.4 degrees to the plane, wouldn't the sun appear to us to go up and down in the sky as Earth rotated?
You're saying there'd have to be actually a circle, like an arc made, is what you're saying, Brian.
Well, as I understand it, the plane of all the planets to the sun, and we are tilted and rotate on a tilt, then surely we would see the sun appear to go up and down in the sky as we go around that on an angle of 23.4 degrees.
Yeah, you'd have to see an arc.
I mean, I might be wrong, but their videos show the sun perfectly within 1 or 2 degrees above the horizon all the way around.
Yeah, well, do you know all the angles, right, to the sun or anything else? When in astronomy, when they're taking those angles, they're not using the surface of their globe. They're using the central equatorial plane, and they do it. All their calculations all happen at equinox, so there is no tilt. So they remove the tilt completely. So that if the tilt was real, then astronomy wouldn't have to avoid it. If you know what I mean. If there was really a tilt, why did they always have to do all of their measurements, not so much all their calculations were all based off of no tilt and a flat plane?
Yes.
All of them. So you're right in what you're saying about what we would see. We would see an arc. We wouldn't see, if you look at the sun, if you look at a video of the sun coming from what would be called sunrise to sunset, it seems to come in at a straight line, about, let's just say, to your 180, and then go off at a straight line. It's like a V, or nearly a right angle, isn't it? It's not an arc.
As I see it, if Earth was perpendicular its rotation to the sun, then you would get this effect. But if Earth is tilted back or forwards, then as we rotated, surely the sun allegedly is not moving. We would see that in a parabola, is it called? It would rise and fall in our skies. But they don't show that. I'd like John to put his head around that, see if he...
Did you guys want to carry on looking at this video from yesterday? Arvin Ash, how our universe violates a fundamental law of physics, energy conservation?
Yeah, okay. I'm totally on that.
Sure.
Okay, well, we have got
no objection once I've got a glass of wine. That sounds a nice plan to get me through to QE Live.
Okay, well, we have got a limited audience with all the technical issues, but if you are in the live audience, there's a link going by to Arvin Ash's channel. Please let him know, as we did a couple of days ago, or it might have been yesterday, that we have covered his video. Say, at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. And hopefully, should he ever respond, second time we've covering this guy, hopefully he'll put a link to my video. But in any event, we'll get on. I think this is about where we left off, 4 minutes 20-ish.
This curvature is what we perceive as gravity, and the curvature of space-time affects matter and energy. The simplest way to summarize this equation is as the famous physicist John Wheeler put it: matter tells space-time how to curve, and space-time tells matter how to move.
The reification fallacy. Not telling anything. It's a maths equation. It's not communicating with a different maths equation. It's nonsense. Just a reification fallacy.
We know the age of the fossils because of the rocks they're in, and we know the age of the rocks because of the fossils that are in them. It's unprovable, disprovable, isn't it? It all works because it does.
It's as simple as that. The matter and energy is contained in this term on the right side of the equation, T sub mu nu. This is known as the stress energy tensor, also called the energy momentum tensor. We need to take a closer look at this because this is where energy is defined in general relativity. And general relativity reveals that the derivative of the energy momentum tensor is 0. To be more precise, the term on the left is called the covariant derivative. But for simplification pertaining to what we're discussing, you can think of it as the derivative. So the simplified way to think...
I don't understand that. Adam, can you break that down for me? Not in front of his PC and being comfortable with a glass of wine yet, so maybe we'll come back to this.
Well, we could, and literally, I'm just pulling up, so I wasn't fully listening. If he's on about, is he on about tensors, where you just apply an extra function to move the coordinates that you would have had based on standard movement, but then you apply the effect of gravity, which then moves all the coordinates because you bent the space time, but you just apply this tensor that just rejiggles the coordinates that 3D coordinates you've generated. I think that's what it is.
I'm going to go with yes. Yes.
Think of this equation is that the change in energy and momentum remains 0. This is called the principle of energy momentum conservation. Note that this equation is not
What's this
saying
energy momentum, though?
Who's causing feedback? Somebody's got their mic wide open. I don't know. We'll get to that. He's only halfway through telling us.
Energy stays the same, only that the combination of energy and momentum remains the same. In other words, only the combined energy and momentum is conserved. What general relativity tells us is that if space-time were standing still, that is...
Okay, now we're getting into it. So it's telling us that if space-time stood still, so the fourth dimensional pseudo-realm only existing in this mathematics is what it's describing. That's why it seemed very alien. Okay, let's continue.
Is if it were flat and not changing, then energy would be constant. But
why? So if pseudo-Riemannian 4 space-time was flat, energy would be constant. Why? Because it says so in the maths? No. I mean, that sounds like something that you could vary and manipulate if it was capable of being put through the scientific method. It isn't, because it's a pseudo fourth dimension that only exists in this maths.
But if space-time is curving and changing...
So here we go. If we've got the pseudo-Riemannian 4 space-time that's conceptual bending, then...
Changing, then the momentum is changing. And
oh, really? That sounds like an if and then relationship. Right, like I said a second ago, so presumably this would be validatable via scientists with the scientific method. Right?
Thus, the energy is changing as well. So, astonishingly, it tells us that at large scales, energy is really not conserved in the universe. We can point to several observations.
Oh, I see. So because in pseudo-Riemannian 4 space-time bending, energy isn't conserved, you can just affirm that that means you can violate the first law of thermodynamics. That's where it's going. Oh, I see. So because the fourth dimensional pseudo-geometry says so. I see. That's where we were going, Arvin.
Well, I think what he was trying to point out at the start, what he was trying to do, not point out, was he was trying to say you won't notice any of this because it won't happen in your reality, but out in a different place that we've made up, it happens differently, but you won't experience that because you can't go there.
Yeah.
So it's a hijacking of reality and entropy.
Right,
So
just
keep
black
entropy
holes.
and violate it simultaneously.
It's a short energy, low energy, short distance problem is the second law and first law of thermodynamics. They're just, short distance, low energy problems. Out in the big wide world of pseudo 4 space-time bending, things are different. That's where we're going. So because the pseudo geometry says so, second law and first law don't apply. That's what he's got.
Wow. Well, I never knew that about Narnia. Did you, Nathan?
Well, there you go. Yeah, I did actually. Rumpus told us.
Oh yeah.
He seems to be an educated guy who's admitting that the laws of thermodynamics do not apply to his model.
Yeah, that's
but
correct.
He's saying it in an educated
Sorry,
way.
I could. Perfect timing. Yes, now the penny's dropped in terms of the description that he's disseminating and Brian's perfect, concise rendition of it. I'll quote Rumpus at that perfect timing. Quote the Rumpus. The second law of thermodynamics does not apply to the Earth. End quote.
And he meant his model.
Yeah, of course, he means Earth as a sphere in a sky vacuum with pseudo-force space-time bending. Of course he means that. When he says the Earth, he's not going to explicitly state that he means a heliocentric model with an Earth as a sphere bending space-time in a pseudo-geometry. He's not going to say that. We know that's the case. But in that case, natural law doesn't apply. So to round out what this guy's trying to spin into saying it's okay because it doesn't apply to an Earth sphere model with pseudo-gravity, that's what his argument is. Because it doesn't work and can't apply in his globe model, that makes it okay. That's his argument.
Well,
Wow.
so he's basically covertly saying, don't worry about it. We've excluded this from the model.
Yes. Effectively zero.
Confirm this. The first is the observed expansion of the universe.
What, by way of begging the question with the CMB?
The first empirical evidence of this was gathered in 1929.
No, an observation was gathered by Hubble. It wasn't empirical evidence, that would be to test by experiment. His suppositions of what was occurring upon observing it were first cemented by Hubble in 29. But that's not affirming anything empirically, that's just looking at stuff and giving it a name.
By Edwin Hubble.
Hold on, Nathan. I mean, he had an idea, something that he was expecting. He took a look out until he found something that kind of matched his description. So that made his model about what's out there real.
No, it's just an observation. It's back in the day, we used to cover this a lot more when we had, I've forgotten the name of the guy that we ended up kicking out for being a total misogynist. Observe and declare, right? That's what's going on here. So observe something in the sky, and ideally you want to have declared it before you observe it, because then you can say you've proven it empirically because you observed it after you predicted it. So it sounds a bit like science, because science would have a suppositional cause prediction that's going to be varied to see if it causes the effect you're studying. But if they say, look, the effect we're studying was predicted to be so, and it has shown out to be so, just like in my prediction of, what are we talking about in this instance? Presumably cosmic microwave background. That's what we're talking about, right? Him saying that that's the expanding universe. Okay, well, if he's already come up with that in the maths, or Einstein in this case has come up with an idea of that possibility in the maths, and you see something that you say is redshift, then you can infer that you've already predicted this and you've just managed to actually spot it because your telescopes have gotten better. That's what you'll assert. So therefore, it's a prediction that's come true, therefore science. That's how they'll spin this. They're not applying cause and effect reasoning with the scientific method. They're not formulating a scientific prediction. They're just saying, here's my Nostradamus prediction. And what do you know? I look in my telescope and it's there just like I was expecting.
Right, that's exactly what I said just now.
I'm
But you
agreeing.
said it much more detailed.
I'm agreeing.
Then in the late 1990s, scientists discovered that the universe is...
See, straight to scientists. Yeah? He's going to appeal to it like it's a cause and effect reasoning statement that's been validated by way of prediction, and now he's appealing and leaning on them being scientists that have done this. So yeah, you know, we are calling this. I mean, because I've predicted what he was going to do before he did it, that's science. Me predicting that this shit would come out of his mouth, next statement, about scientists doing this, when I say they're hijacking the cause and effect relationship and making it seem like they've predicted something and then proven it, right? Yeah, straight away, called it. But is me calling it before he did it making it science? No. No, I'm not presuming a cause of an effect I'm studying in nature and then varying that presumed cause to see if it causes it. That would be science. But he's just said scientists, making you the audience, his audience, not mine, think that this has got some empiricism to it. He also said empirically validated. Hubble was looking at stuff in a telescope. It's an outrage. He doesn't know, Arvin doesn't know what science is. He thinks that looking at stuff in telescopes is science. Maths is science. It isn't.
Is not only expanding, but that this expansion is accelerating. This acceleration is called dark energy. The problem with...
Another example of... Yeah, perfect. Another example of them saying, we are going to need this massive dark energy to make our equations work. Well, we haven't seen it yet, but we will eventually. Oh, here it is. Look, just as we predicted. It's the same thing. And then they'll call that science.
expanding space-time is that
expanding pseudo-Riemannian geometry. Yeah, expanding space-time. No, you've got a fourth dimension and a pseudo-maths, a pseudo-geometry. That's what you've got. Now he's talking about that in a physical term. Expansion. Sounds physical, doesn't it? Yeah, it's not. Yeah, we don't have
Yeah, but they're
expanding
gathering
pseudo-4
data.
space geometry. I guarantee that's Neil. You'll
Yep.
tell me later that you
Sorry.
didn't say anything all the whole time. You just decided to interject right at the point that I was talking.
Sorry.
We're not bending 4D space-time. There is no 4D space-time. It's a pseudo-geometry invented by Einstein that this guy, Arvin, has just described as expanding, a physical concept.
empty space has energy. If the volume of the space is increasing,
Even straight off the face, right? Empty space has
What?
energy. Does it? Give me a box of empty
Really?
space. Now power a remote control car with it. Just stupid stuff that comes out of pseudo 4 space geometry. Nonsense statements like that. You know, listen to yourself, Arvin.
It's just magical warped Narnia space.
Doesn't
Of
that
course it
sound
has
like
energy.
ether?
Does sound like ether. Yes, that's a good point.
Yeah.
What would they call it? Hold
Yep.
on. They would call it the energy from counter space, would they not?
That's
I
pretty
don't.
much what it boils down to, his description.
I don't know. I heard that there's energy in space. First of all, I'm assuming they're saying outer space, like the vacuum of space. Can you show me that in nature, please?
You missed off the bit that makes it sound a lot more mysterious and mystical. Dark energy.
Well,
Yeah,
we can gather
dark
data.
energy, and that's dark energy and dark matter, and the ether is the flat earther, the numpty flat earthers, dark energy and dark matter. Yes, same thing.
Okay. We've got 50 people watching, and because there's hardly anybody in chat, I don't have to repost the link to Arvin's video. But as there are 50 people watching, there's at least one of you that will oblige by going to his video and saying, at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. We responded to your video. So I don't need to put it back in the chat because I can still see it on screen right now. As I said before, there was a reasonable amount of people. 50 is not bad considering this isn't a scheduled live stream. Yeah, please let him know. At Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, and hopefully he'd do the same in return. Should he respond to us and say, what an outrage. Me saying that the expansion of pseudo 4 space-time is perfectly reasonable. Or whatever he responds with.
energy is increasing. We know that the energy density of space-time doesn't change, but energy.
No, he doesn't know that in a physical term. He knows it because that's what the maths tells him. Well, the maths describing it doesn't make it a physical reality because it's describing a pseudo 4 space geometry. I'll keep saying it every time he infers that you've got a physical contrast. You haven't.
Right. More compounded presuppositions. That's what it all is.
Density is energy over volume. If the volume increases, then energy also increases. This phenomenon appears to indicate that energy is not.
You want to say it, QE, or shall I? Where do we observe this phenomena in nature?
Yeah, I'd like to see it. I just not the phenomena. I just want to see a vacuum of space in nature. Let's start there, and then we can move to the next point.
Well,
If I've got QE,
let's get it clear, Adam. You're saying, okay, QE's had it. I like that. All right, okay. So we've got a couple of problems. First, we're going to need this space, this nature-defying vacuum of space. We're going to need that. Then we're going to need to see that vacuum of space volume increasing so that we've got more energy in it. Okie dokie, just so we're clear what we're asking for.
this is empirical.
Empirical.
So you take box A and box B. Box A is half the size of box B. You evacuate both things, then you find a magical device that will measure the dark energy in both boxes, and you can correlate the two. That's what's being suggested here. Yeah, to have any form of empiricism, you've got to have a methodology to prove this excessive. The larger the volume, the greater the dark energy. Other than just saying it because it's the only thing that resolves his equation.
Yeah, but hold on, you don't understand that if it's dark matter or energy, you per definition cannot measure it. You can only calculate it.
No,
So,
you measure it in the light. You have to turn the lights on, then you can see the dark energy. It stands out.
No, you're both wrong. You're both wrong. This is only existent. You were right first time, Adam. This is only in existence in the mathematics itself. So,
Exactly.
yeah, you're both wrong.
No, it's not even existent in the mathematics. What mathematics? Let's see
They're
the math.
mathematics.
It's a
The
hole
ones they made up, Kiwi.
in the no. It doesn't exist in the maths. Kiwi's right. It's a hole in the mathematics. There's this massive gap of energy that the current theory doesn't explain. So it pumps in, excuse my vernacular, it pumps in dark energy to fill the hole. It doesn't really explain anything. It just stops the problem being a problem.
I see.
Right.
So it's more,
like
so it's
the
more of
black
a.
hole in the math.
So where I say it's only in existence in the maths as a phenomena, wrong. It doesn't exist in physical reality. It doesn't exist in the maths. And a band-aid over the non-existence of this contrapoint or counterpoint to their claim, because there isn't any dark energy in the maths, is to slap over another layer, not proof, just to fill the hole.
So then why is it even a thing then?
Because
Get
their math
tired
is
of
wrong.
Because there's a, didn't you just listen?
Because their math is wrong and they
we just
refuse to
explained it 10
proceed.
seconds ago, Neil. Because there's a hole in the pseudo-geometry. Well, you need to fill that hole quick sharp with dark energy. There you go.
Can you show us the equation for the vacuum in nature, please? Or the sorry, not the equation. This equals that. Just the maths. I want to see that first. Then show it to me physically. How about that?
Not being
He's
concerned.
going to need a radius.
For a vacuum?
For all of his horse manure.
I don't know if he's
That's
going
the
to need
starting
a...
point.
Well, okay.
He's not going to need a radius to show us a vacuum in nature.
Just humour him. You're right, Brian. He'll need a radius for that. You're right.
Another consequence of an expanding space-time is the observed redshift. The light from distant galaxies is redshifted. As the
Is it? Observe and declare, ladies and gentlemen. Is it? So you varied and manipulated the distance of the light and the thing that produced it, emanating it, to prove that that was the cause of this, quote, redshift. I mean, you can call redshift just about call it a phenomena. Just. Okay. Let's see the cause of that phenomena. Let's vary and manipulate that which you assume caused that effect. Oh, what? You're just going to call it the expansion of the universe? Oh, well, okay. Yeah, we accept that here. That's standard. I say it's farts from unicorns. Why? Well, it's obvious, isn't it? I'm just going to say it like you said it. Do I have to provide anything? You didn't.
universe expands the wavelength.
Sorry, go on.
Unicorn farts do expand the wavelength of light. It's a fact.
That's exactly what my point is.
Influence light. That's correct.
Yeah, exactly. So unicorn farts proven.
Length of light also expands.
And as by implication, unicorns proven.
Yeah.
What's the universe expanding into?
No, Adam. Hold on. I've just got to correct Adam. No.
The stable.
Hello. Unicorns were assumed in the first instance, but I didn't declare, therefore, unicorns, did I, Adam? So, I mean, you can't possibly label that as a begging the question fallacy because I automatically just assume them.
I was going to say, by not saying that, you prevented it being a fallacy.
Exactly. By saying it's not a fallacy when I automatically assume the outcome of unicorns being real, by way of talking about their farts. I didn't declare at the end of talking about unicorn farts that are obviously real by assumption that therefore unicorns are real. We just all understand implicitly that they are because I assumed it in the first instance. That's not begging the question. We're taking the piss out of Matthew Learns, by the way, who's very slow. Shouldn't really do that in jokes, really. For the current audience, they don't know that until I contextualised it. In joke, very bad form. Very bad form.
We learned from Max Planck, E equals h nu, where h is Planck's constant and nu is the frequency, which we can rewrite as the speed of light divided by wavelength, lambda.
Speed of light. So speed of light, which is derived from heliocentric concepts that will need R. Brian, that was your moment. But then we're going to say that that's the same as a wavelength? Something that's been derived from diffraction patterns? This doesn't make any sense when you boil down what we're talking about. Speed of light based on assumptions and heliocentric motion over concept of description of light as a wave when sorting out the patterns it produces when diffracting. This makes no sense. Anybody care to make this make sense? because it doesn't.
No. Speed of light's convention. And Brian, take it away. Brian stole that shit from me. He got all hot and bothered about it. Right, Brian?
Yeah, speed of light is based on averages.
Hold on, we're supposed to
Darwin
make.
made it.
Hold on, Brian. We major on the minors here. Did QE get there 2 weeks before you?
2 weeks.
More important point here.
10 years.
10 years.
No, but he ran with it. He did a good job with it. He can destroy it. Yep, that's why I did it.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about the speed of light until I met QE, so I can't claim anything to do with that. But as far as that goes, it's based on averages. Yeah, an average radius based on an oblate spheroid, an average distance to over a 12-month period to a heliocentric sun, and some other averages. It doesn't matter. The point is, it's all based on averages.
Averages of what? Averages of what? Average.
Heliocentric belief.
What? How they get the one-way speed? Averages. They don't even have a one-way speed, so you can't average something you can't get.
It's an average calculation, not a measurement. An average calculation based on. Yeah, that's what like it can't be a measurement if it's an average anyway. How can it? That's the point.
I don't know about a
average can't be a measurement.
I don't know about a calculation or a measurement, but I suppose they calculated it, but it's based on a convention.
Why do you need an average for a constant?
What? Average for a constant? That's pretty funny.
Well, that's what's being
That's a good
claimed
point.
here.
Isn't that that's a contradiction in terms, isn't it?
No, but that's what they're claiming.
Hold on. If something's constant, right, then the value is that constant value. If something's averaged, then it's the addition of all of the different values divided by the number of values. Well, if it's only one value, maybe it's a bit like the speed of light, the sound in the speed of sound in a vacuum, in the respect that, well, it's only one value and you're dividing it by one value. So, you know, that is the average, still, strictly speaking, if you do the calculation. You know what I mean?
If you take all of the varying two-way speeds of light, calculate it into a constant from the average. It's a perfectly reasonable statement.
Man, it's such a convoluted drivel of nonsense, isn't it? When you really break it down. I mean, we've had on screen the convention divided by the convention equaling E for quite a while now. And we've got the three-dimensional representation on a 2D screen of pseudo-4 space-time with a squiggly line. I love it. I mean, I think in about 200 years' time, when we're all long dead, pushing up daisies, people will look back on this time and go, wow. I mean, I understand some of the religious faiths that preceded heliocentrism being a bit wacky, but heliocentrism's got them all pegged in this regard, hasn't it? It's so off the wall and so wacky. Like I say, on screen, you're looking at a 3D presentation on a 2D screen of a fourth dimension that you cannot experience. That's what he's trying to show you whilst describing maths that fail as though they're real, with a convention divided by a convention in the maths. It's just nuts. It's so off the wall. 55 people watching. Please share the show. Like I say, we're not normally out at this time, so if I should have really said this a lot more than I have. Yeah, this would be more appropriate to suggest that you share the show, because we're having fun here, right? We're all having a laugh, and people will enjoy watching as we take apart heliocentrism by Arvin Ash.
Fun.
Please let them know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Go ahead, Neil.
I just said fun.
Thank you. So worthy of the interruption.
Thus, we see that if the wavelength is longer...
Do we see wavelengths? My understanding is that wavelengths are a convention that's been derived from diffraction for each type of light, and the pattern that it produces, then calculated and described in mathematics as a wave function. Well, those wave functions will give you the various different wavelengths of the different types of lights. But it's still just a convention that's derived from a diffraction pattern, is it not? Am I misunderstanding, first of all?
No, that's correct.
Right.
Yep, that's correct.
Well, therefore, Okay. So, what's he babbling about? I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense.
Waves, man. Just don't bring them negative waves, even if they're all just conceptual.
Right.
The energy is lower. So the photons have lower energy by the time they reach us. This appears to violate conservation of energy.
Is that actually the case? It is if you describe how much energy it has at the starting point of a journey that you can't prove it takes, with a speed that you can't prove it takes, by way of a calculation with a load of assumptions that Brian just disseminated, making what he just said completely moot.
Where did this loss of energy of the photons go?
What loss of energy? What photons? What speed? What is this on screen? A fourth dimensional 2D representation of a 3D space that isn't a pseudo 4 space that all of this is taking place in? Ugh.
Well, the energy of the photon is observer dependent.
Woohoo! 64 people watching. Wow, someone shared. Thank you for sharing, whoever it was that smashed the share button.
Our perspective, the photon loses its energy to the expanding...
From our perspective? How can you say that? You just see light. You don't see light journeying towards your eyes unless you infer this distance with redshift from Hubble. So it's all based on the pretense that we've got this speed of light then. And then you can describe how much loss of energy this photon when travelling at a speed. Like I say, I hope in 200 years I look back at this and go, wow, weren't they nuts?
Space-time between its origin and...
There's no space-time between anything and anything. It's a pseudo-conceptual medium in this math.
Us. Now, I know some of you are going to ask, since we know that dark energy is increasing, could it be...
Sorry, who presupposed that the dark energy was increasing when it's a band-aid over the maths that definitely doesn't explain it, but it's got a big fat hole in it? But suddenly people are going to be asking, based on the pretense that we know it's increasing. Why would he say such things? It's so ham-handed. It makes me... When I try and smoothly transition from one thing to another, right, doing it by way of a total presupposition that your audience is going to say, I understand that the dark energy is increasing. Who's doing that?
He prefaced it earlier when I gave the analogy, so you'll understand that box A is half the size of box B, and there's twice as much magical, mystical, dark energy in box B than there is box A. So this is the point where you nod, because you've already had that confirmation by I told you earlier. So now you can agree with him and appear clever, because you know that there's going to be more dark energy there. You can nod and go, yeah, I know that. That's a fact I gained earlier.
We only know it based on his equation where he says that as the volume of the space, and then we had QE pipe up and say, well, you're going to need to show us some of this stuff starting with the vacuum of space, increases, then the energy increases. So therefore, we know that there's going to be an increasing amount of dark energy, and we've got to pose a question based on that he's told us when we've disagreed with every word of it. But you're saying that your average Joe Normie who watches this guy's channel will have heard his description in a pseudo-4 space that he hasn't proven and nod when they say, well, therefore I understand that the dark energy is increasing and I've got a question. I'm raising my hand. Let's just see what the question you'd be asking is.
B, that the energy that light waves lose turns into dark energy.
Could it be that the energy that light waves lose turns into dark energy? What light waves? The concept that I objected to earlier with diffraction patterns giving you light described with wavelength. If that convention isn't going to be an amount of loss in an energy of a wave. This is absurd. And I'm definitely not asking the question based on an increase in dark energy. I mean, your assumptions fall flat based on what we are now taking apart in this crap. Anybody else got anything to add before I play on?
That's coming back together now. It's becoming a sensible theory. Because previously I didn't have a clue what dark energy was, what could cause it. But now I know it's just that energy loss that photons experience as they travel through an expanding space-time. That then creates dark energy. This is quality story time, but it makes perfect sense if I assume all the preloading that he's put in at the beginning of the statement. I can now nod and agree and feel clever because I can now go to my friends. I know what causes dark energy.
Yeah, but that's not his purpose here. His purpose is to violate the first law of thermodynamics. So at some point, he's got a segue between what he's just described based on an assumptive question we would give based on a band-aid of dark energy filling a hole in maths that doesn't work when we assume expanding universes based on Hubble. Well, when we get to the point that he says, therefore, the first law of thermodynamics doesn't apply to our universe at the large scale, which is where this is going, we're going to laugh our tits off. Because none of the preamble that goes along with that assumption that he makes in conclusion at the end will work. Because we pulled apart every single aspect of it. Ergo, the first law of thermodynamics will still apply to nature. It's a natural law. It just won't apply in his pseudo-geometry because of an explanation with dark energy.
Thus conserving energy overall. Well, the problem with that idea is that even if you take all the observed light of the universe into account, it would not account for the amount of dark energy in the universe. Dark energy is almost 70% of the energy of the universe, whereas all the matter and light that we can...
So this is the switcheroo, isn't it? So even if we take all of the light, so even if we do our maths, it doesn't work. So we have to put on that pie chart, which shows you how bad it doesn't work. Yeah? The known universe of what they're claiming to be is that tiny little segment of the pie chart. The rest of it for the maths to work. Look, there you go. The rest of it needs dark energy and dark matter to keep that 5% working and say it works. But it only makes up 5% of what they now claim makes everything up, or has to make everything up for that 5% to work. It's just nonsensical. But I do believe it now because I can see where that 69% comes from. It's from the energy wastage of photons.
Yeah, because of the expanding universe and the increase in energy you have in that vacuum as it expands. Obviously.
and observe is only about 5%. The lost energy of light would be a minuscule portion of all the energy needed to counterbalance increasing dark energy. The expansion of the universe presents a...
Why does he keep presenting how it fails? What is that like putting it in the headline when he gets to this topic change? He points out where it fails 2 or 3 times in the opener. I don't get this tactic at all. Am I misreading it?
Giving us an explanation, and now he's gone. I'm giving him the explanation, but that don't work. But we're near enough. And
okay, it just seems like
it's a new thing again. It's the McKeegan effect, right?
Tell you how it don't work.
Confessional debating.
Right, tell you how it don't work as a defense for how it works.
Major issue with treating the universe as an isolated system. We don't even know.
There are no isolated systems. It's a convention described within the first law so that you can understand it at a simplistic level. So you're now appealing to an aspect used in description of a law you're debunking to claim the universe is that state that doesn't exist in nature. Wow. Wow, just wow. So when you get around to debunking the first law, will the conventions used within it to describe the first law itself also still hold true within your isolated universe? It's like, what the hell?
Know what the size of the...
Go, Brian, go.
Sorry, he seems to be stating that none of this works. But hey, that's science. That seems to be his direction.
Yeah.
Because he's claiming science and he's also claiming none of it works. And that's what he's done since I've listened. Since he started playing the video, that's all I've heard.
The universe really is. So we can't define what the isolated system would be. We only know the observable universe, which is...
So we can't define it.
It's getting better and better.
Just put it right out there. Okay. So that makes everything you've just said moot. You can't even define it.
About 94 billion light years in diameter.
Well, how do you know? You couldn't even define it. You're going to need R for that 94 billion years, right? That light year measurement relies on R and we've debunked it. So you're not going to get away with dropping in 94 billion light years when that's a distance measurement that's reliant on an R value that you haven't got anymore.
There's a so-called cosmic event horizon, which
is there now? Right? What, at the edge of the Oort cloud or some shit?
Is at the end of the observable universe.
Oh, right. Beyond the observable universe, what's that way you can see stuff in your telescope? Right, where Hubble observed redshift. Go on, sorry, whoever that was.
Where the cafe is.
This is where the cafe is, right? The end of the universe cafe.
Yeah. But this is the point. Where else do you conjure that statement other than science fiction? Yeah, it's not something they can prove. But Douglas Adams said it, and that makes a bit of sense. a step outside of time and go to the cafe and watch the universe end. This is what they're dealing in. It is total science fiction, and then trying to strap numbers to it.
Right. The event horizon itself is a pseudo concept at the edge of pseudo bent space time, right at the edge of a geodesic, at the point of a black hole spaghettification. If you were near it, it's leaning on these geodesics in space time, pseudo concepts, to give you event horizons at the edge of the space that's been observed through a telescope and described by Hubble, with observe and declare mentality, all implied to be science, none of it validated empirically. Go ahead. Was that Adam or Brian?
It was me. Yeah, I was just going to say it's the same exact thing as what they were always trying to do geometrically. All globe proofs and all curvature was always past where you can't see. So it was always beyond the horizon. Everything to do with their model is where you will not experience it and can't observe it. All of it. And this is just a more complicated, bigger version of that same exact thing. You can't see past the horizon, so that's where our curve is. You know what I mean? He's saying the same thing, but he's saying it in a greater expansion of heliocentric space.
Kind of raise the question, what's it expanding into? Because in his diagram, just for people who are watching live, please share the show, by the way, if you are watching live. On his diagram, you've got the edge of the, what did he describe it as, the event horizon for the known universe, and he's got it all presumably coloured in red. I am colourblind, but I'm going to assume he's got where Hubble's redshift is. Okay, what's all this then? Like, when we used to ask back in the day the really crude questions about the heliocentric model, what's it expanding into? With him, it's just got this grey fuzzy stuff. Like, what this grey fuzzy stuff undoing your nonsense.
Sabine Hosselfelder says it's expanding into itself. That's what she said in a video she made about on the topic.
I remember that.
Is at the edge of this cosmic event horizon are moving away from us, such that the light beyond it will never reach us. I was watching a video on Magellan TV, today's sponsor.
If it's the edge of the universe and there's light beyond it, it's not the edge of the universe then. It's just that you're saying that the light won't reach us when you've got a speed of light equation that's calculated based on assumptions of an R value. Okay, well, that doesn't mean anything for light beyond the edge of the universe. It's nonsensical.
Which showed how it's possible that the universe beyond the visible universe could be infinite. And if that's true, then the universe would definitely not be an isolated system, since we could not put any boundary around it.
So, to describe your debunking of the isolated system that is the universe in the heliocentric model, that's also got its flaws too, hey? Okay.
Anyway,
doesn't bode well for you debunking the first law at the end of all this.
Just a question, if QE's there. If you go this philosophical route he's saying here, where we've got a not even ever expanded, but infinite. If in of itself it's infinite, then how can it be anything other than an isolated system? Because it has to be isolated in of itself, because it's infinite, therefore it's not going to interact with anything else. Therefore it would be isolated, wouldn't it?
OMG. Number one, infinity doesn't exist in mathematics.
I know. And that's what I'm saying. He invoked it.
I'm not done yet. That was just on number one. Infinity doesn't exist in reality or mathematics. That's number one. Number two, you have to know the damn boundary conditions to claim what system it is. So somebody would have to go out there. You got to know the boundary conditions.
Yeah. So that's my point. To know the boundary conditions to define the system, right? But if you go into fairyland where we make a statement that something's infinite, then there is no point that that boundary interacts with anything else to define whether we've got isolated or closed or open. So therefore, by nonsensical default, it has to remain isolated because it's not interacting with anything else. It's infinite.
Because there is not anything else.
Yeah. So it's infinite. So therefore, he's gone back to proving the thing he was disproving.
Well, you couldn't even say it's an isolated system because if there's nothing else, if there's not a competing system, then it's nonsensical, right?
Think of it this way, Adam. If you were a bodybuilder, right? If you were a bodybuilder, you'd be expanding into yourself, wouldn't you?
I'd be expanding, but
What the heck?
Is the thing I'm expanding into changing, or is it just me that's changing as I expand? That's the. But they're claiming that everything's expanding.
Oh, brother, we're off the reservation. When does this end?
Never.
No, I'm talking about the video because you've already debunked all the bases. Now we're just chasing down incoherencies off the things that were debunked before.
We're being entertained by the double speak.
It's
You won't lower
excruciatingly
yourself, will you?
painful. It's
You won't lower
excruciating.
yourself just to do it.
It's excruciatingly painful. That's why I'm doing other stuff. Any more questions?
No, let's move on.
Let's do some more.
In this case, we would have to conclude that the universe likely does not conserve energy. The Magellan TV documentary is called Is the Universe Infinite? And it's
Why would it be posed as a question? I mean, you've just covered this, so let's not rehash it.
a fascinating exploration of the question, how far do stars stretch out in space?
Again, why would it be posed as a question? Shouldn't we know? You're going to make any sort of claim that's considered valid? Oh, but it's just there with a question mark hanging out like a turd. Yeah, okay.
And what might be beyond them? You can click the link in the description to check out that documentary for free right now, because the first month of your Magellan TV subscription is absolutely free. But once you see the
I'm going to go with no. We'll pass. We'll pass.
rest of their extensive high-quality link in the description, much, much larger than the 94 billion light-year diameter that we observe. So we don't know what the isolated...
Hold on. We observe that diameter, do we? What? How do you know the...
Light's not a measure. Light's not a measure of time nor distance, by the way.
Perfect.
Light year.
Much more concise than I would have been.
system in which energy may or may not be conserved consists of.
May or may not be conserved. Yeah, this is a wonderful foundation to move forward. Like I say, I do hope they look back in a couple of 100 years and laugh like we are.
Should the isolated
They being the general public numpties currently.
system be just the observable universe?
Could it? I don't know. It's amazing. Let's ask these amazing questions. Maybe make some declarative statements thereafter immediately.
If so, what about the galaxies that are moving out of the observable universe?
What about them?
If people are looking back in 100 years, who are they going to be critical of? Only the masses that believe this. They're not going to be critical of the disseminators. Just listen. They're going to say, why didn't these people listen to what they were actually being told? Yeah, it may or may not be. Yeah, they took it as a factual proof. That would be the critique, if you look back, is the gullibility of an audience that was actually told the truth but interpreted a falsehood.
I see. So what you're saying is when presented with a question about what it could or could not be, followed by a few conclusionary statements, the gullibility of the audience is what needs laughing at, not the fact that this Alvin guy is disseminating doublespeak and then making conclusions based on questions that he may have about what the universe may or may not be.
Yeah, exactly. He's making you fill it in. He's making you make the claim as the listener. He's actually disclaiming every single thing he postulates to you.
What about their energy? If we consider just the observable universe as an isolated system, then we're clearly losing matter. And
what?
So we're losing matter, but it may or may not be isolated. Okay, so that's completely inconclusive and a presumptive statement in the first instance, even if you did know it was isolated, which you do not. So this is meaningless drivel. This is the conclusion, by the way. This is the end of the video.
Due to E equals mc squared, we're also clearly losing energy from our system. When
What, based on E equals mc squared, that means the energy of the system that you don't know is or isn't isolated is definitely decreasing? E equals mc squared give you that, did it? Really?
galaxies leave our observable universe. Now, I must
Did they? How'd you know? Did you watch them?
point out that some experts believe that overall energy is conserved in an expanding universe because they argue.
Would that be isolated if it's expanding into something that we don't understand how it could be expanding into it if it's the edge of the known universe? But that would make it not isolated anymore. Okay, so now we're hearing the contrapositive in the conclusion. Weird, 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 weird.
You have
What
to
does this
include
have
the
to
energy.
do with energy conservation anyway?
Dunno,
What the hell is he talking about?
At the end of this, he's probably just going to give us all this crap and then go, therefore the first law doesn't have to apply in space. Something like that.
Energy of the gravitational field along with the energy of the matter and radiation. In other
There are no gravitational fields.
words, as distances between objects increase, the increasing gravitational potential between them can be thought of as a kind of negative.
Go on. Go on.
I'm sorry, I was laughing. Please continue.
Gravitational potential between them. He's talking about distances between masses. That's Newtonian. Well, it's not Newtonian, but it's all what they call Newtonian.
Radiation.
So
In other
they were
words,
switcheroo.
Will QE come a little walk down Absurdia Lane with me then?
No.
What's negative energy.
That's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard in my life. I've heard people talk about that some years ago. What the is negative energy?
Could we imagineer something to hold this paradigm together?
No, it's all right. I do actually know this. You know, when we have the rhetoric of the rebellious gas particles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the way that they get other gas particles to rebel against the second law of thermodynamics is by bestowing upon them negative energy. So, while they're burning their bras and talking about how crap the whole universe is and how they're not going to carry on in line with natural law, they burn their bras, eat their cakes, fall back down. But as they're doing so, they're giving off negative energy. So obvious when you describe it.
Yeah, it is obvious. That's stupid. You're confusing a metaphor with an actual physical quantity.
I am. I'm juxtaposing it with him doing it. That's not. I don't actually think gas particles are burning their bras, QE. Come on, be reasonable.
It's just the negative waves, man.
Yeah, it's fourth wave feminism.
as distances between objects increase, the increasing gravitational potential between them can be thought of as a kind of negative energy. Now, how the heck is this considered negative energy?
Go on, someone's mumbling.
I'm losing the will to live. And this.
There's this guy. Check out the expression on his face I've paused on. That was unfortunate. Sorry, mate. I did the same for Vice, and me rolling my eyes back into my head has been the thumbnail on loads of people's videos. So, sorry, mate, but this is going to be the thumbnail.
Legendary physicist Stephen Hawking explained it this way. When you pull two objects apart, you need to expend energy to overcome the gravity that pulls them together.
No, you don't.
No, it's wrong.
No, that's a Newtonian concept. No. Mass isn't attracting mass for you to have to overcome any force that they're attracted to each other with. Mass doesn't attract mass.
And what's mass?
Since it takes positive energy to separate them, gravity must be negative energy. And this
must be. Could be no other explanation.
Increasing negative energy perfectly cancels increasing dark energy. Some argue. Now, this
you and me are on the
Isn't
same vibe today, Kiwi. Go on, Owen.
increasing negative energy? Isn't that just decreasing energy?
No. Decreasing the negative energy. The energy on the negative side of a scale that would reach zero, Arvin. Try and keep up.
This is not
It's
an
no
incorrect...
energy at all.
Less than no energy. Bloody hell, Brian. Negative
I
energy.
don't know. It's just my rudimentary math senses are getting a bit confused about the increasing of a negative energy. Like, what?
You just don't understand. Imagine you've got a car battery and it completely depletes and has got nothing in it. Then it keeps going, losing even more than it had at zero. That's your negative energy. Like sucking the life out of the car.
Way to think of
I
it.
don't think that's gonna happen though.
Well, you
Is
just
this
don't
not akin
understand.
to-
You just don't understand negative energy.
The problem is that unlike
I think
dark
I
energy,
might do. Just can we go back to boiling water? So if I've got boiling water and I'm thinking, I'm not quite ready for my cup of tea yet, but it's boiling. What I don't do is turn off the heat. What I do is add a bit of cold to stop it all boiling away for a bit. Just keep adding a bit of negative energy. Just add some cold
Right.
to it. That'll stop it boiling.
Increase the negative energy. Quick.
No, but this is it's nonsense. Negative energy. Can I add some cold to something? No, it's just an absolute nonsense that they've had to invent now. I'm not sure why. But again, it's you can think of it as a negative energy, and then we're going to move forward as if negative energy exists, because now we've defined what gravity is.
Yeah, but so long as you don't explicitly say, therefore, negative energy, it's definitely not a begging the question fallacy.
Is the negative energy concept the same thing that makes things that move up also accelerate down at the same time, like Rumpus talked about?
No,
I think what Adam is stating.
No, you're talking about a
I think what
consequence.
Adam is
Oh,
stating.
no, it's just to answer him. No, you're talking about a consequence of a bent geodesic as opposed to the geodesic itself, as much as I hate that I can answer that question. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I think what Adam is saying is that ice is dark matter, and black ice is very dark matter.
Exactly, Brian.
Yeah, we've worked it out, Adam.
energy, which has a constant energy density, there's nothing like a constant gravitational density in the universe. The curvature of space-time is not defined at every point in space.
Because there isn't any. In space makes it sound like it's something in physical 3D geometry, but there is no fourth dimension, and you're not showing it in this. It's back to your 3D representation on a 2D screen of a bent fourth dimensional pseudo geometry. There is no fourth dimension in this representation. There is no bent space-time. So to decide how much energy it's containing is just farcical.
But does energy actually have density? The density of energy. Is that real?
No, he's
Or is
talking
it just this colloquial description or something? Because it doesn't really seem to make sense to me.
because
Density.
he's not describing it in terms of the physicality of something that we would describe as having energy. He's describing it in the geodesic bent space-time mathematics when he describes gravity. When he says gravity, and then talking about conservation of energy, all these things are described within the pseudo fourth space-time dimension that's being bent. Every aspect is going to be about that pseudo geometry, Arvin. Always.
All
when they
right,
say
all
the
right.
word.
So basically, energy doesn't have density, but in the pseudo four space, it does have energy and momentum, which was also kind of weird.
Perfect.
So it's
You're
a
going there.
special
No.
type of energy then in there.
Yes, it's that
Yes.
dark energy that may or may not be obtained, even though it's not sufficient to obtain it through the energy release of photons. Now, as the stretching of space-time, that should equilibrate, but as space-time stretches things, this grid means you've got disproportionality in terms of the amount of energy that was there, but it's been stretched because of the 4D bending of space-time. So the density of the dark energy that would be there has a variance because of the perplexities of the 4D bending space-time. That changes that. So therefore, the density of the energy will vary.
Yeah, imagine the
That's
time it
scary,
takes.
man. You made
Imagine
me
the time.
believe it.
Imagine the time it takes the light to travel along this blue bit that's been pegged out by this scientist. Well, that blue bit represents the bent geodesic in space-time. That's the fourth dimension. This bent fabric. Yeah? Well, imagine how long it takes for light to travel along that fabric, Arvin, when it's bent
No,
in
I
geodesics.
kind of get it. So there's like this transition between 3D space to pseudo space. It's like the door of the closet into Narnia, and in Narnia arrived all these normal things from the normal world just have these unique special abilities that only work in Narnia. I think I'm starting to get this.
You don't need to know. You don't need to go to Narnia to conceptualize it, though. You just need to conceptualize how, if you are one of these 2D cartoon characters on the screen now, right? They're clearly cartoons, yeah. Unlike the scientist. Now, obviously, this is CGI. For anybody that thought they were real children, they're not. But they can't imagine the 3D world because they're not in it. They're only 2D pencil drawings. So for them, as a 2D pencil drawing, they can only conceptualize how the 3D bent blue bit beneath them would be in existence because it isn't in existence for them as 2D. Now imagine that you, as the scientist, rolling out the ball, explaining how that bent third dimension of fabric is actually like you conceptualizing the fourth dimension in the same way these 2D cartoon kids imagine the 3 dimension that they're not really bouncing on because they're 2-dimensional. Do you understand, Arvin?
Yes, and I have an important note on that. You know what? If you're a 2D character like that, like those kids, and you're literally 2D, well, then the depth literally doesn't affect them at all because they have no dimension for that part. So it's literally, it doesn't exist to them. Kind of like how pseudo-Ramonian force space fourth dimension doesn't affect us at all.
Exactly.
So it kind of makes sense.
I love it. Arvin, hand in hand with me, describing this nonsense. Perfect, Arvin. Thank you so much. Exactly. So in the same way we can't really experience the fourth dimensional pseudo-Einsteinian time dimension that is described with shedding photons and increasing volumes and giving you energy and all this crap that you were asking about how that doesn't make sense in physical reality, it doesn't need to, because we're not experiencing the fourth dimension in the same way these cartoons aren't experiencing the 3 dimension I've slapped them on top of in a 3-dimensional photo. Well, just because you can't experience the 4D space-time pseudo-Ramonian geometry bending in a geodesic doesn't mean it's not really happening and can be described in the maths, and any problems that occur can have dark energy slapped on top of them to explain those problems in the maths that you're not experiencing in a physical way. We all comprehend,
Right. Yes, but my point was mostly that it's not even about the perception of it, it's that it doesn't affect them. You see? It has no physical real influence whatsoever. It's not even about perception, it's more. It's all encompassing.
Exactly. And you've already summarized that in terms of us. How we wouldn't experience the pseudo-4 space-time bending and the energy loss and the volume increase. None of that would be experienceable by us. Either, Arvin. You've already done a really good job in that regard. Well done.
Exactly.
Adam,
I'm
go
just
ahead.
understanding the depth of this implication. It's not just about, oh, we can't see it. No, it also cannot affect us. I never realized it like that before.
Oh, right.
It affects you. You just can't detect. So you see the kids on screen. They're not jumping up in 3D space. What you've got to realize is that they're on the surface of that sheet that's pinned out. So it's badly played out. But if you put them on the surface, you will see that they're no longer, from your viewpoint, a 2-dimensional thing. They're actually 3-dimensional in the surface, because the surface is 3-dimensional. But because they're 2-dimensional creatures and they only live on the surface, yeah, they won't be aware that their feet are slightly moving at a different rate in time than their heads, because then that's what the wobble means in terms of the sheet. Yeah. So they will never knowingly experience the time difference between their head and their feet. But we as observers, being able to look at their 2-dimensional world expressed on the 3-dimensional sheet, can see that clearly their feet are moving in a different time zone to their heads because of the undulations on the 2-dimensional sheet that's got the weights on it.
Perfect.
Right.
Now, hold on, Arvin. Don't overdo it.
affect
Hold on.
them.
Don't overdo it. Now cut to Arvin's conceptual 4th dimension of space-time, represented with Earth as a sphere and the Sun as a sphere, with us moving along a geodesic in 4th dimensional time. Now, I appreciate that the diagram I've used when I've slapped these cartoons on top of this guy is actually explaining the same as Arvin is explaining with this. He's just physically reified it into a sheet he's stretched out. Nevertheless, he's doing the same magic trick that Arvin is doing, and I'm taking the piss out of it by putting 2-dimensional characters on it, because I made this. To take the piss out of this guy when he says that this is 4D space-time bending. It's not. and neither is this. And as Arwin's just highlighted so eloquently, none of this affects you.
Right,
Because
and
it's not real.
I'll never see that little test thingy, the sheet with the bending things again, because now every time I see that, I also realize, yeah, that's in relation to the second dimension, and anything in that second dimension cannot even perceive any of it nor be affected by it. And that's something that's now intricately tied into that imagery.
Go on, Adam.
Thank you.
That's not to say it's not happening. Just because you can't tell that your feet are moving at a different rate of time to your head, because the difference is so small, the bending in the sheet is only tiny between your head and your feet, but it doesn't mean it's not happening. Yes, your feet are moving at a different rate of time than your head. It's just you can't detect it because you're just a 2D creature.
You're scaring me.
Can I,
Well,
can I just point out that
you can have to. I just round out this point, Brian. Yeah, but where Adam earlier said that it's embarrassing for the people who have it disclaimed to them, it is being disclaimed here by Arvin in terms of what is and isn't real and what leaves you with questions about the suppositions posed about what the universe is. Now, geodesics in space-time are a perfect example of that. When you understand that they're not affecting you and that it's inconsequential and you wouldn't know the difference if anything did because it's non-physical and geometry that isn't real on pseudo for space-time bending, well, that's all been disclaimed in this video. And Adam's saying, you as the audience member, you're the responsible party here. You know, when you're having it all laid out to you, which in most instances it is, right, then it's on you. Now, some people who are a bit more conspiratorial will say, no, they have to hide the truth in plain sight. I don't think that's the case. I think as these bullshit stories progress in their manufacture, people add on extra layers like dark matter and they become part of the rhetoric. It doesn't mean that you've got to hide the truth in plain sight. It just means that when someone's tried to square a circle and failed, all of the failures are still kept within the rhetoric and disclaimed by next man, like it is here. But then it's only on you. You're just hearing parrots regurgitate a rhetoric. That's all Arvin is. He's just a parrot regurgitating his own religious rhetoric. Whether or not he realizes it is irrelevant. But at that point, his responsibility is over and it's on you. Right, Adam?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brian.
No point where he said, this is reality. He's prefaced everything with, this may or not be the case. This isn't. And when he's explained things, he said, but we do know that explanation is not sufficient to explain the explanation. Yeah? It's all on you as the listener. And as we're sitting here, we're just reiterating what he said. Tongue in cheek, but we are truthfully describing what he's describing. Now, if you choose to take what he's saying and allow it to impact on your perception of reality, and you bend your reality to incorporate these concepts, shame on you, because he's not forcing you to do that. He's actually telling you, I'm making this up. But you as the listener fill it in, and I bet if you ask 10 different physicists they'd all have 10 different opinions on it. They'd all try and support it, but they'd all describe it in a different way. Because there's, back in the 1400s, when they're trying to get the ball into play, the hardest thing is to get the conceptualization of the model into the listener's mind. Once you've got that, you can give them any old bit of shit to keep it together, because they'll keep it together for you, just like he's doing now. He gives us this may or not be true, and you take it and you run with it and you try and use it to explain this perversion of reality.
Perfect. Brian's in the wings, but I just want to incorporate Neil at this point, because Neil often sort of alludes to the idea of how flat Earth is progressing. Well, this is a great, perfect moment to say, well, you can't quantify it in those terms, because all we're doing is exercising critical thinking, and our focus of subject is the Earth. But the critical thinking skills are the prevailing thing that we're actually doing here, even though our subject is specific and flat Earth is the subject versus globe Earth in most instances. But you can't give that to the general populace. So when you say, well, when will the general public know that this is the case? Well, when they're still governed and controlled by a narrative that's been given to them that's the same as ours, because it won't be that they accept it based on what we have come to the conclusions with, which is critical thinking, because they don't want that. And teaching them critical thinking skills is something that's, the education system's trying to drill it out of the youth, not install it in them. So we won't win a battle of offering the general populace a better logical way of thinking. We'll struggle to achieve it in the first instance because a lot of people are thick. Sorry if you're thinking this is horrible to thick people, but that's tough. A lot of the populace are thick. So you won't be able to educate them in critical thinking, especially if they've already been indoctrinated heavily. So therefore, how will Flat Earth progress
that.
for somebody like, Neil, who's asking about the general world at large? Well, when the education structure changes radically and we offer children the ability to think critically rather than giving them rhetoric to parrot back in a comprehensive manner.
Yeah, homeschooling could do it.
Yeah, I realize that as I've been looking into scientists.
Well, I see it pretty simplistic what's going on. In 1915, Einstein gave them permission to use their imagination. And since then they have, right? And they've even stopped using the rules within general relativity and special relativity, like the adding in of what they call Newtonian concepts, things that are not part of it. And the reason they're doing this is because they're using their imagination. And what's after happening is, I couldn't point the finger at these people, who are doing this now and say, you're trying to deceive, because the truth is that they can't make heads nor tails out of their own nonsense. They can't describe it or explain it simply or in any way coherently. Because all they can really say is that may or may not be the case within this paradigm that's connected to this other paradigm that all started at this original paradigm that I don't know, that has no validity. Do you know what I mean? Like, this guy can't even work within the rules of general relativity and special relativity within his video because he's in his imagination. So he's going to give you whatever his imagination gives him within the paradigm he believes he lives in. And he can't even, make sense of it. So how are you supposed to make sense of it? So the confusion is what's keeping it alive, because people think there must be an answer there when there isn't. There's just a whole load of people who are confused and they call them experts.
Right. And when those experts offer up a solution to a cognitive problem, like George Musa, well, gravity is not a force, but you have my permission to think of it as a force. I'm paraphrasing. But that permission is the overcome that a fundamentalist needs when they have a paradigm that needs to be adhered to. Okay, so it doesn't work as a force, but I can think of it as a one. Well, that's enough. I need it. That's all I needed. Because from thinking of it as a force, I've got an emergent force. Okay. Well, again, it's back to, no. You were told it's not a force by the person that told you could think of it as one. So you've allowed your imagination to run riot with the permission you've been given by a man about a paradigm with a non-force in it. Okay? So you're going to go forward to square that circle by saying it is a force. Okay? Well, that's your bad. But next man who hears that crap from this, in this instance from Craig, Fight the Flat Earth, it's on them. And so on, and so on, and so on. Now, at some point, somebody breaks that and goes, hang on a second, this makes no sense. But because it's a control structure, there's going to be people, not just the people who are disseminating it like Craig, but people who benefit from keeping the people generally kept under control. The church, with religion. And that's all this is an extension of. It's a religion. Heliocentrism has come from the church because it's a religion that was created from the church. So if you want to keep buying into the church rhetoric and coming up with forces that aren't forces, but you can think of them as forces to square circles, then that's down to you. I'm never going to be the one to change the Western world away from the religion that they're kept under control with. It's never going to be promoted in YouTube like we would hope it would, because it doesn't benefit anybody. Knowing how to think cognitively, knowing how to think logically, doesn't benefit anybody that wants to keep the general populace under control. You need them dumbed down. We don't help that, do we?
No, heliocentrism is such a poor religion. When I say poor, I don't mean financially. I'm talking about poor as in it's set up. They don't even have a scripture, if you understand what I mean. Like, there's no Quran or Bible for heliocentrism. Because they don't want to admit to themselves.
Sorry, just to step
that
over
it
you
is.
just a little
Go
bit. The kind of have,
Yeah,
in
called
a
the
way,
science book.
Scientology, right, is the only offshoot that's got a church. So if you look at heliocentric faith as a religion, you can only really focus on Scientology, which is why I started focusing on it. Well, they're locking up all the rhetoric and scriptures from Hubbard and putting them all in vaults with all their rules and nonsense in really secure areas that are guarded. And all this rhetoric is heliocentric in nature and origin, along with a bit of Hubbard, and being locked up underground and kept in climate control environments and all the rest of it. Like it's the Dead Sea Scrolls or something.
Yeah, but that uses heliocentrism. And okay, it is Hubbard, so it's kind of, it's one of the main people behind heliocentrism in recent history. But it's not heliocentrism.
Yeah, it is.
The point, what
You're
I'm
wrong.
saying, it is.
I hate to be argumentative. It's just I've spent too long looking at Scientology to let you get away with that. It is. It really is. It's just heliocentrism, in fact. There's very little deviation from just straight out vanilla heliocentrism, Brian. You'd be shocked. And as you say, Hubbard's one of the founding fathers. You know what I mean? Of course it is. It is just heliocentrism.
Yeah, I'm not there. Sorry.
I'm
not arguing that point. I know I know that it exists within heliocentrism, so it is heliocentrism. But your average bowler is not a Scientologist, is my point. So there's no, let's say, heliocentric Bible outside of whatever Scientology can claim to promote. There's no Bible, there's no Quran for people to refer to, if you understand what I mean. It's such a mess. It's a crap religion.
But isn't
that
you
is
say there
also the
isn't,
most popular?
But the Quran and the Bible, right, are going to be part and parcel of the journey of the story of heliocentrism. Has the Bible at its heart. That's where it's come from. So then you work forward into Copernicus and Kepler, right? But they're priests. They're doing it on behalf of the church to figure out when Easter's going to be. So then they become part of the story, the book, if you want to call it that. No, there's no extra testaments that have got Copernicus's name on or Kepler's name on, but they are just still the extension to the narrative.
No, you gotta segregate the two things there. You've got the books, which in of themselves, frankly, don't involve themselves directly in this argument. They describe what they describe. Then you get doctrine that doesn't change or pervert the text, because we can read the text today and say, well, that's against what the church is professing. But what you then got is that agenda of doctrine and the use of priests to reveal a heliocentric mechanism, even to, is it Lemaitre, Arvin, I think, down to the Big Bang.
Right.
These are all priests that bring this out. But at no point does this pervert the text. All it does is get the congregation to ignore the text. And that's the world we're in now, where Christians, Muslims deny their own scripture because it's in contradiction to the other religion in their life, that of heliocentrism.
Sure.
Well said.
But when you have that aspect of a church or disseminated from the church rhetoric that doesn't have a Bible attached to it, that is where I suggest that Hubbard comes in with Scientology. It does establish that extension to the story, which is entirely heliocentric in Scientology specifically. It has all of that rhetoric with the Kepler-based descriptions within that church religion and within those scriptures. Therefore, what you're describing as them not having a Quran, and I appreciate that you're saying your average Joe Westerner isn't a Scientologist, but that doesn't mean to say that if that aspect of that control structure were to die as a result of what we are doing here, you still need that tucked away on a shelf somewhere in its entirety with all of Kepler's base research. And that is factually tucked up in Scientology, believe it or not.
It's important.
Their
because
Bible
you
is
don't
the
forget-
internet. It's Wikipedia. It's the libraries. It's just put in everything. They don't have it scraped together as an official religion.
Maybe, but not very kept easily, very easily memory hold, unlike climate-controlled documents that the Scientologists have. I know this is a moot point. We will get back on the video, and I'm going to shout out James Richards. He says, Neil, every religion puts heliocentrism with themselves. That's not too poor of a religion. Whoever said it was poor, I think that was Brian. Yes, it is the live show, by the way. Anybody asking in the chat, is this the live show? Yeah, it's hella late, and yeah, most of the time's been spent faffing around with the computer. And I said this yesterday, I like doing the show, and as much as I'm going to get an earful from my wife, especially as we've currently got no car, for running the show really late, yeah, please share the show, as this is today's live show, in case you hadn't figured that out. And we are indeed live right now, if you're watching live. If we're not, it's because you're watching afterwards. Let's just have a bit more video so we come across. We've segued a little bit too far, so we'll just play the bit of video.
But is defined locally by whatever matter and
Can I say
energy
one
may
thing
be
before we
present
do?
there.
It's not anymore. Time, it doesn't work like that, Brian. We're not bending geodesics here, but go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, there is an Old Testament and a New Testament in heliocentrism. When it comes, if you used to use gravity, the Old Testament was what they called Newtonian, and the New Testament is Einstein. So they do have an Old and New Testament.
Good one, Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Neil.
Yeah,
Thanks, Nathan.
Hey,
I'm sure. Like
I gotta
said,
go.
Why?
Sorry for the interruption with this deep intellectual conversation, but I gotta go.
Okay, that's fine. You have permission. You are
I got a show to
excused.
prep for.
Are we on at 7?
I got a show to prep for in about 30 minutes. Yes.
Okay, well, I'll keep this live audience ticking over. Please share the show. There's 70 people watching, which is crap by the standards of standard live streaming that we have here on Flat Earth Debate. But also considering it's not a scheduled stream, that's pretty good. 71 watching. So please share the show. We're going to keep going for at least another half an hour, and then we'll hand over the live audience to Quantum Erasers live stream audience. But in case, again, you hadn't figured out, this started off as a members stream to avoid the embarrassment of the stream cutting off with the computer failing, and has then been turned on to be public. So we've subsequently had a couple of hours of actual public live streaming, but obviously the audience has slowly increased over that time. But we will be ferried across to Quantum Erasers QE Live in about half an hour. But in the meantime, please share the show. We will round out. There is literally less than a minute left of Alvin's video. But Brian, did you want something else to add before we round out the last minute of this video?
No. I just wanted to throw that in there. Thank you, Nathan.
No worries.
So calculating whether the notion of negative gravitational energy counterbalancing dark energy cannot practically be done.
Okay. Good to know.
Brilliant.
Gravitational energy.
So everything he's just waffled on about, he's then said in a really nice way. I can't prove any of that.
Yes.
But the main point against this notion is that since general relativity plainly points out that energy on its own is not conserved.
In the maths. It points it out in the maths. It doesn't demonstrate it in physical reality. But because the maths says so, back to this, we did do this earlier. Well, the maths says so. And because it plainly points it out, is it your mom? It's maths. It's just describing stuff. It doesn't even describe something that physically exists in this instance. But it's plainly saying it. Oh, God, you're governed by maths.
We may be better off just letting go of the idea of energy conservation at the scales of the universe, even though...
Oh, I see. So we can just let go of this maths that until this point we would be reifying into our physical reality. But we can just let it all go. Yes, we can. We did. We've done that quite some time ago. You're still babbling on about it though, aren't you? Even though it's been let go, right? Yeah, by us, not you. You're still reifying it. Shout out to Elvis.
Yeah, let it go, man. Let it go.
I'm not going to sing that. Elvis Kavorvik, shout out to this for the super chat. Says, love the story you shared yesterday about important of staying home with kids. I can totally relate, and I do the same. Time with kids over money and time. Yeah, that's all well and good, but the little sods who are coming in right now. Hold on, Eleanor, I'm still working. yeah, they might be shuffled off to school because we're having financial difficulties. No, they probably won't be, but we don't have any means to take them to anywhere at the moment, which is a bit depressing. And the whole time rich and cash poor thing is a bit of a crapper when you run out or break something or something fails, because then you actually can't sort that out. But there we go. So there are some massive downsides, which God has punished me with for some reason today. Anyway, we won't get into that. Thank you for the super chat, Elvis Kaforvik. I really appreciate it. And although I'm moaning today, the sentiment will be echoed and the problems will be overcome so that we can still benefit our children by educating them at home. Thank you again for the super chat. Let's just stick it on screen.
Though it's nearly perfectly valid at the human scales in which we operate. So practically speaking, our energy conservation equations are valid. They only begin to show cracks when we start looking at very large scales. So we should not be throwing out our thermodynamics books quite yet. I'll see you in the next video, my friend.
The language is the language of shysters. What does beginning to show cracks mean? I mean, it doesn't work. It's fundamentally, yeah. And how big the cracks are is how much it doesn't work. But if it's supposed to be a description that doesn't work, what's the point in proceeding with it?
There isn't one. Earth's not a sphere. We don't have gravity. We haven't got pseudo-Riemannian force space-time bending. But with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell, even though I said I would hand off the live audience to QE. I'm rounding out anyway. I'm sorry, QE. There will be a link, hopefully, from one of the moderators going by in the live stream chat. So at least click on that link and pop yourself in the queue, put it on a spare tab so you've got it prepared for half an hour's time when QE Live does start. But I'm going to say thank you again to today's Discord and G Plus panels for making today's live show and members-only show and all the previous shows that failed possible. And, of course, a massive thank you to all of you in the live stream audience for smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a member, hitting me up on PayPal, and all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!